There's nothing where he used to lie. Conversation has run dry. That's what's going on. Nothing's fine, I'm torn. I'm all out of faith. This is how I feel.
What? We've started now. They're playing a song called Torn.
Torn?
Yeah.
What's that got to do with it?
Oh, you accused me of having torn trousers.
Oh, yeah, you have. You have got torn trousers.
Well,
I saw them the other night. You did. You caught your heel in them, and they're ripped, and you're a scruff bag, and you shouldn't do it. In a second or two, going to talk about real issues which are affecting real people in the real world.
Yeah, well, that would be good. I'm going to give you a big smack around the head with a large piece of wood to see if it has any effect on you.
You couldn't, mate. Honestly.
Really?
You can use army.
Yeah, well, I don't think I'd need an army.
Yeah, if you're brave enough.
Yeah, don't forget only 1/3 of your heart works, and you lost in the boxing competition, so I don't think you want to do that.
I want to tell you a story about a man who lived and died with the morals of an alley cat and the very, very sad end he came to. And his name was Fatty Arbuckle.
Fatty Arbuckle?
Fatty Arbuckle.
I've seen him in films.
You've seen him in films?
Yeah, he was in those old black and white films.
Yeah, that's right, that's right.
But silent films, were they, or not?
No, he did go into... Well, he was one of the original Keystone Cops. That's how he started on the screen.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
He was a Keystone Cop.
I used to watch the Keystone Cops.
You used to watch the Keystone Cops?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, because I thought they were very funny. I remember going to the cinema with my dad.
Yeah.
We used to go and watch like old Laurel and Hardy movies.
Yes.
The cinema in Hampstead used to show all old black and white movies.
Yes.
And they'd have all those kinds of things on as well, because they were all quite short.
Yes.
Little sort of short films like
I have
the
to
Keystone
admit, I
Cops
thought they were very funny as well.
They were.
Yeah, and Charlie Chaplin, all that kind of stuff.
Buster Keaton.
Now, but the thing is, I've just come across a research paper on Fatty Arbuckle, because did you know he was sentenced to death?
No.
Right, well, I mean, it's a fantastic story, you see, but it's all because of his life lived under the rule of the morals of an alley cat that got him into terrible trouble.
Is that what he called it, or is that what you're calling it?
No, that's what I'm calling it.
Right.
You see, what happened was, he was plucked out of the Keystone Cops as a guy who, although he was huge and fat, and this is why there are so many similarities between his life and yours, okay? Because he was, he was huge and fat, but what
How
is
much do you weigh again?
What is not similar between you and him, he was, by the way, 21 stone 7 pounds, which is quite heavy.
That's a lot heavier than me.
Okay, I'll accept that. But he was very nimble on his feet, because he was a dancer. So he had this great presence on stage, you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So he's plucked out of the Keystone Cops, and you won't believe this, but at the age of 26 in 1913... he started in the Keystone Cops. At 1921, he was taken out by Hollywood and given a contract worth, you won't believe this, in those days, $1 million.
Wow.
I mean, it was huge. Yeah. It was worth like $80 million today.
Yeah, I bet.
It was massive. Anyway, to celebrate this, right, and this was Paramount, the
studio.
Studio.
Yeah.
To celebrate this, he gathered a few mates together. They got in a car, such as there were cars in 1921.
Yeah.
And drove to San Francisco. And held a party in the St. Francis Hotel. Now, I've stayed in that hotel in San Francisco. There's two great hotels there, isn't there? Sir Francis Drake and the St. Francis,
And Fairmont's quite a big one as well.
Fairmont's a big one as well, yeah. But anyway, on the way, they picked up a lady called Virginia Rapper.
Yeah.
And I would say that if you describe this lady as a lady of loose morals, right, you'd be about right, okay? And
why do you suddenly appoint yourself as the sort of moral guardian of all people?
Because I've never indulged in this sort of behaviour.
Well, you've done nothing but to get involved with people who have been married all your life.
Anyway, listen, let's talk about Fatty Arbuckle, shall we?
All right, okay.
Anyway, they go into room 1219 in the St. Francis Hotel.
Yeah.
Okay, she described herself as a model and struggling actress.
Yeah.
Most people think she was a lady of the night, okay? A few minutes later, screams were heard. Guests rushed in to find Ms. Rapper, Virginia Rapper, fully dressed but writhing in pain on the bed. Arbuckle said he'd gone into the room after her and found her slumped drunk on the floor in the bathroom.
Yeah.
He carried her to the bed and she'd fallen off and started screaming.
Right.
But the terrified rapper said he did this to me. Anyway, her condition deteriorated. She was taken to hospital, and 3 days later, a friend who was another alleged lady of the night, Bambina Delmont, told doctors, she's told me she's been raped by Fatty Arbuckle. Right? I mean, it's a terrible story. A day later...
Not very cheery.
No, it's not. It's a shocking story. A day later, Rapper died from peritonitis.
Oh, right.
Now, that's blood poisoning.
It is, isn't it?
So that means that, if in the course of a sexual assault he had physically violated her, you see what I mean? This is what could have happened.
Right.
Anyway.
And you're drawing some kind of comparison with me. I think that's a disgrace.
Well, you have such loose alley cat morals.
You're drawing a comparison with me with someone who's been accused of a major crime.
Well, what I'm saying is...
Who's stood trial for a major crime.
What I'm saying is...
sentenced to death for the manslaughter of a woman.
I'm not.
And you're saying that I've got some similarities with this guy.
I'm not.
I think that's absolutely appalling.
I'm not saying that
lower than a snake's belly.
I'm not saying that you would murder or manslaughter anybody.
Oh, that's very nice of you.
What I'm saying is you follow the sort of lifestyle which could get you into big problems.
No, I think you've gone too far this time.
Anyway,
I think you made a mistake.
Anyway,
I think you may have to take all this back.
Anyway, morality groups demanded that old Fatty Arbuckle face the death penalty. Right?
Yeah.
He was.
I'm just reading here that he took a break from his hectic film schedule at one point because he was suffering from second-degree burns to both buttocks.
Exactly.
From an accident on set.
That's right, absolutely. Anyway, Arbuckle then was blacklisted by the whole of Hollywood, okay? He was portrayed in the media as a fat brute. That's the way he was described in one newspaper.
You're saying that we have similarities?
Yeah.
Don't you think you should start retracting
No, I think you are a fat brute. And it was said at his trial that he'd pinned down his prey and ruptured her bladder. Now, that's a terrible accusation. His lawyers said that Rapper, the woman who died, was an alcoholic prostitute, and she'd had numerous abortions and she had venereal disease. I mean, it gets worse. The case against Arbuckle was flawed, not least because Delmont, she was the second lady, the friend of Rapper who's dead, had already been charged with numerous counts of extortion, bigamy, fraud and racketeering.
Sounds like a bad business altogether.
Well, she was known. You see, this is where I say you've got to be very careful with the sort of people you mix with, Mike. She was the sort of woman...
What do you think I mix with?
She was the sort of woman who would get a man in a room and then a photographer would jump out of the wardrobe and take pictures and she'd then blackmail the guy because he was married or something like that, right?
Right. He wasn't married, though, was he?
Fatty Arbuckle wasn't married, no, but that's what she was known for. She'd had several trials involving that sort of behaviour. And also, it became clear that Rapper, the lady who unfortunately died, was said to have suffered from persistent bladder problems for some years. Now, it later emerged in court that the prosecution had intimidated several witnesses to testify against Arbuckle. Even so, the actor was tried 3 times. First 2 cases were hung juries. A third trial in 1922, the jury took just a few minutes to acquit him, right?
Right.
He says acquittal is not enough. He says...
So he was never found guilty?
He was never found guilty. He said, I need a written apology to get myself back into Hollywood. It's been a grave injustice.
Yeah.
Despite this exoneration in a court of law, Arbuckle was frozen out of Hollywood. But this is the most tragic fact of the whole story I'm about to tell you now. In 1933, after years of being, blacklisted, Warner Brothers offered him a contract. And guess what happened then?
What happened then?
It was signed. He went home to celebrate with his 3rd wife, and he collapsed and died of a heart attack with the shock.
Of what? Getting acquitted?
Yeah, no, of getting a new contract in Hollywood.
Oh, right. Well, I still think that any kind of comparison you're
46 years of age
with this guy who's had a clearly very
46 years of age,
very unfortunate and tragic life. To try and compare him to me, even though I've already outlived him, even though I've never been in that kind of trouble in my life. I think it's absolutely despicable.
No, it's not, Mike, because Fatty Arbuckle is a warning to all people who live an alley cat morals type existence, which you do.
No, I don't.
Which you do, let's face it.
No, I don't.
That you can stumble into these dark areas which get you into terrible trouble.
As I've said to you, you're the one that commits adultery with other people's wives, not me. I don't do that.
No,
that's what you do.
No, you just commit adultery within your own marriage.
No, I'm not married.
Many times.
I'm not married.
But you did when you were.
When I was married, there were occasions where, yes, I did commit adultery.
Many occasions, I'd say.
Well, it doesn't matter, though. You are not my judge. You are not my jury.
Well, don't be a judge on me, then.
I'm not judging you. I'm just saying that you put yourself up as some kind of moral arbiter when you are, in fact, lower than a snake. Because what you do is you mess around with other people's love lives.
I don't put myself as any moral arbiter. I'm merely commenting on if you play with fire, like Fatty Arbuckle's buttocks, you will get burnt.
Yes, indeed. Very, very true. Coming up, we've got Porky Vision a little bit later on. Also, we've got 3D printing to talk about. Do you understand anything about 3D printing?
No.
All right, because we're going to have somebody explain it to you. Mr. Derek Kennyville is going to be here, and he's going to be telling us exactly how they've managed to recreate the Palmyra Arch and put it up in Trafalgar Square.
Across the UK, online and on DAB.
The best of the 2 mics
on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
sounds like a TV theme. Do you recognise that?
That was the Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Was it?
Yeah.
I had a Man from U.N.C.L.E. car.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't have one of those. I didn't know they had a car.
Yeah, they had a car, yeah.
Oh,
Well, you know, they had like a blue
No,
Chevrolet or something.
No, they didn't have
And
a car. They used to jet all
Of
around
course
the
they had a
world and
car.
solve, terrible crimes and all
They
that
had a
kind of
car,
stuff.
no, and they also had
Yes.
on the bonnet of the car they had the sort of the globe that was their sign.
Oh,
you know,
I see.
the company that they worked for, whatever
yeah.
it's called.
Well, they must use that just to poodle around Manhattan.
Yeah, presumably
near the United Nations
but
building.
the thing that was good about the car was that when you pressed the top, there was a kind of almost like a police light on the top, or something like that.
Yeah.
And when you pressed it,
Yeah.
one of them came out either side of the car with a gun.
Oh, really?
That was a great car. It was like a dinky toy.
Okay.
You remember that?
What did Uncle stand for?
Uncle, I don't know.
Oh, come on, tell me.
I don't know.
You must know if you watched the programme and you had the
I
car.
watched it when I was about 6.
United Nations Command for Law and Enforcement.
Yeah, well, I don't have a memory like yours.
Yeah.
I remember the things that I did yesterday. I don't remember the things that I did when I was 6.
Yeah.
You, on the other hand, are completely the opposite way around.
What was the name of the Russian agent?
Don't know.
Ilya Kuryakin.
No, Ilya Kuryakin was one of the men from U.N.C.L.E.
That's what I'm
He
saying.
wasn't a Russian agent.
Well, he was the Russian agent in U.N.C.L.E. The whole
No,
thing.
he wasn't a Russian agent, was
He
he?
was. The whole purpose of the plot in U.N.C.L.E. was that Napoleon Solo was the American agent and Ilya Kuryakin was the Russian agent who worked together for the United Nations Command for Law and Enforcement. Don't you get it? What was the front for the U.N.C.L.E. headquarters?
I don't know. Why are you quizzing me on the man from U.N.C.L.E.?
Do you know what it
I
was?
haven't watched it for years.
Do you know what it was?
Decades.
Do you know what it was?
I don't know.
It was, down near the end of your road when you lived in Manhattan, there was a little Chinese laundry shop.
What?
Chinese laundry.
Where?
In the road you lived in Manhattan.
No, there wasn't.
There was.
No.
There was. Well,
East
it was at
30th
one time.
Street.
No, I'm not sure. It was the one before you lived in. Anyway.
East 81st Street.
Yeah. But anyway, the point is...
No, there wasn't one there either.
Well, I used to use one and used to walk down the steps into the shop, take your shirt in.
Yeah.
That was the front for...
Oh, that was on 2nd Avenue.
That's it. That's the one.
Yeah.
That was the front for U.N.C.L.E.
What, in that shop?
Well, what they used to do is you used to walk in...
I had no idea.
No, they used to
I used
walk
to get my shirts done there as well.
Here, they used to walk in, and then the bloke, the steam iron thing, the double-handed steam iron you bring down on the
Yeah.
shirts to press them.
Yeah.
When he brought that down, a door opened at the back behind the curtain.
Why do you remember all
And
this?
you went into U.N.C.L.E. HQ, which was the size of, the size of a small city, actually,
Really?
behind the Chinese
You said it was a bit like the TARDIS.
laundry. Yeah, it was a bit like the TARDIS, yeah.
Okay. Well,
Anyway, I
thanks
thought
very
you
much
got to
for
know
that.
Yeah, yeah. Now...
Keith says the Land of Cakes is gone now. It's a Bem Brazil restaurant.
oh, is it
What's
really?
a Bem Brazil
I
restaurant?
don't know. I'll tell you what else was opposite, was Yates's Wine Lodge, one of the roughest in the north of England. Used to get drunks thrown out there on a regular basis. Not me, I hasten to add, but other low-life drunks, you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
of course. Lord Rilo says there's no reports of Elliot Ness being an alcoholic. Where does Porky get this rubbish? More projection from Porky.
No, he did. He had a terrible problem with drink. I mean, I feel sorry for him, obviously.
Of course.
Fatty Arbuckle presses his knuckle into my noggin, gives me a flogging. Fatty Arbuckle releases a chuckle. I go for the ball bat before I recall that.
People are very unhappy about your comparison. Matt says this.
Yeah.
So Mike Parry's in a foul mood because Neverton are rubbish and then takes it out on Mike Graham. Have a word with yourself, Porky.
I didn't take it out on you at all.
Matty says it's shocking what Porky's comparing MG to. My respect for him has gone down a bit now.
What?
I think he needs to apologise.
What for?
Oh, quite right.
What for?
Well, for comparing me to some guy who's been up in court for a very, very serious crime.
Yeah, well, I mean, all I said was that I didn't accuse you of being a potential murderer or even a manslaughterist.
Manslaughterist?
Yeah,
How about this? Williams has got some advice for me. Time to get your lawyers together, MG, and get some of Porky's vast fortune off him after his remarks about you.
That's a bit
It's a good idea. Now, I've got one for you, actually,
Oh, yeah, go
because
on.
I saw this on the news yesterday.
Yeah.
And I wondered whether you knew about it or whether, if you did know about it,
Yeah.
you were involved in it.
Right.
Did you see that somebody delivered a petition to Downing Street yesterday calling for new laws providing better standards of care for monkeys kept as pets in the UK? And knowing as
no,
I do,
but I mean, I'm with-
that you've
I'm
got,
with it on that one.
This is the people at Monkey World. Do you remember
Yeah.
when we were down in Bournemouth?
Yeah.
And you were carousing with that guy's wife inside Bubbles, the drinking establishment at
Yes.
Bournemouth Football Club.
Yes.
And she was hugging you and kissing you and all that kind of
Well,
thing.
I can't help being attractive to women.
Because obviously, you don't get involved in the morals of an alley cat type behaviour. I presume you didn't take it any further. However,
Yes.
she invited you to Monkey World, didn't she?
Why?
Because it's down in Dorset.
No, but I mean, does she run it or something?
Well, no, but she knows that you have a great interest in monkeys.
Oh, I see what you mean, yeah.
So
yeah.
you claim.
Well, of course I do.
I mean, you're supposed to be trying to free Tommy the Chimp.
Of course I am.
How's that going?
It's going well.
Is it?
It's going well.
Is he still in captivity?
Yes, but
Right.
they're making progress.
And then there's the other one that's on an island somewhere off the coast of West Africa, right?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Is he still there?
He's still there, yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So anyway, this petition was handed in by the director of Monkey World,
Yep.
Dr. Alison Cronin,
Yes.
the musician Peter Gabriel, who you might know, and
Peter Gabriel, yeah.
and South Dorset MP Richard Drax.
Yeah, well, I'm very pleased.
And basically what they want is that same standards of care in zoos and wildlife parks should be applied to households. But what I didn't know was how many of these cases there are, that there are so many people in this country who have got monkeys as pets.
How many?
It says here that there's hundreds of them. Many well-meaning but ignorant people are buying these wild animals at vast expense from unscrupulous breeders, animal dealers and pet shops, and are taking advantage and telling people it's okay to keep a monkey in solitary confinement in a bird cage in their sitting room.
Oh, that's horrible.
Isn't that horrendous?
That's horrendous. Utterly horrendous. If I saw that, I'd break into the house and free the monkey.
100
shadow of a
primates from the British pet trade
Yeah.
have been rescued by Monkey World.
Oh, that's
so
good.
they say that they think there might be as many as 10 times that number.
Well, that's only 1,000.
Well, it's 1,000 monkeys,
Well,
though.
I agree. It's
only 1,000. You're
Yeah,
supposed to be the animal's friend.
Yeah, but I thought you were going to tell me there were tens of thousands. I mean, if
Well,
it's
there
only
might be.
1,000 across Britain when we've got 70 million people here, that's not a lot.
Well, I think the point is they don't know.
Well, I have to say, it is a matter of
you're
concern.
banging on about two
No,
monkeys,
it is a matter of concern.
two monkeys in the world
Yeah.
that you're trying to rescue.
Yes.
But you've had absolutely no success rescuing.
So what are we...
I'm telling you, there could be 50 times that number in this country
So-
who need looking after.
What are we protesting for? Some legislation to regulate the keeping of monkeys in captivity?
Yes.
Well, I think we need it. I totally
because,
agree.
for example, there are already rules in place for zoos
Yeah.
and rules in place for, different sort of wildlife
Yeah,
parks,
monkeys
that
are
sort of thing.
intelligent. We don't want them in cages.
But there's no rules in place. If you went out tomorrow, found somebody to sell you a monkey, and you took it home and just put it in your garage,
That's horrible.
There's no rules as to what you're meant to do with it.
That's horrible. I mean, I could have a relationship with an orangutan without a shadow of a doubt.
Could you?
Well, they're very intelligent creatures, aren't they? And
Well, it's all comparative, I suppose. isn't it?
They mimic human behaviour and all that kind of stuff. But I'm glad you pointed that out, actually, because that is something I will turn my attention to.
Well, maybe you could sign the petition. It's 110,000
Yeah,
signatures.
I will.
Really.
I will. I'll get that petition. I'll sign it.
I'll send the story to you so you can read it.
Today is a great day, not just because it's the 90th birthday of our glorious monarch, but guess who lost his life on this day today in the great circumstances?
Who lost his life?
Yeah.
How is anybody dying make something a great day?
Well, it was brilliant. I'm talking about the Red Baron.
The Red Baron.
Yeah, you know his name was Manfred von Richthofen.
He was the First World War's German
the
super pilot.
German ace, yeah. But do you know how he actually died? It's a brilliant story.
Was he not shot down?
No, he wasn't actually. What happened was he was flying around over the Somme, right?
Yeah.
The Battle of the Somme. That was a terrible one. And he'd already...
Well, not many great ones, really, are there?
No, there aren't. He was known as the Ace of Aces. He was, 80 Allied kills, okay. And over this air battle in the Somme, you won't believe it, but a soldier on the ground, one of ours, raised his rifle and fired at the Red Baron's plane.
Right.
And
Which was like a biplane, wasn't it?
it was a biplane, absolutely right. It had an open cockpit, okay? So the Red Baron, that's Manfred von Richthofen, cops for a bullet through the neck.
Yeah.
But he manages to land his plane back at his German airfield.
Right.
So he lands, and, all these guys...
Severely wounded, presumably.
Severely wounded, and I know I shouldn't be laughing, but...
Why
it's
is it
quite
that
funny.
people's misfortune always makes you chuckle?
No, because...
I don't understand it.
What happens is, I mean, this is the end of the Red Baron. He's a legendary figure.
Yeah.
So he lands his plane and jump, 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 he chugs up to his parking spot.
Right.
Jump, 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 jump.
Right.
And all these guys...
You say the opposite of chocks away, presumably.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever that is.
Well, I was just going to tell you what he said, his last words. And all these guys with silk scarves rush out, as they do, to turn the plane round and refuel it for another mission, thinking he was come down to land and refuel.
After another success.
Yeah, but when they turned the plane around, his last words were, I cannot fly again. And when they all said, why not?
Did he say it in a broken English-German accent?
I don't know. But this is serious. He said, I cannot fly again. In German, presumably.
Yeah, presumably.
And they said, why? Well, Baron, what is wrong with you? And his last words on earth were, I am kaput. And he died.
Or at least he said whatever the German is for I am.
No, it was kaput.
Ich bin kaput
Yeah,
or
ich
something.
bin kaput.
Right.
Yeah. Ich bin kaput.
Yeah, well, I suppose you would say that.
The chair,
you nearly went off the chair.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose you would say that, but it is quite a sort of defining moment, really, isn't it? Yeah.
Do you think then when the last third of my heart goes, mate, and I'm suddenly bang,
I think those would be good. That would be good last words, wouldn't they?
Well, even if they're not, tell people they were, will you, for me? You know.
I will. I will.
Yeah, I mean, Porky slipped away. He said, "I'm kaput."
But I mean, as much as these things are tragic, you can see where the funny side is. I mean, there was a terrible story. You don't remember? It was an old colleague of ours who was the namesake of another colleague of ours. I'm not going to give his name out because he's still got family working in the business. But he died on a mountain. Up in Scotland.
Oh, he fell off the mountain.
He fell off the mountain.
I know him.
And well, don't give his name away.
Why not?
Because he's still got family working in the business. And we don't necessarily say that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, his last words to his brother were, I'm going.
No, I'm going now.
Yeah, I'm going. Literally, as his hands let go of the rock that he was holding onto, and he fell to his death. Terrible. Absolutely awful.
He had a Scottish spelt name, didn't he?
He did.
Yes, that's right. And I remember reading it, and it was quite amusing because those were his last.
He was actually the reason I went to America, or one of the reasons I went to America.
Oh, why?
Because
he asked you to do it for them.
Well, no, he didn't.
The Mail on Sunday.
No, he didn't. No, but he used to play golf quite a bit, and I was playing golf with him.
Right.
And I was telling him how difficult it was to get a job in Fleet Street.
Yeah.
And, you know, nobody was making any. There was loads of people giving shifts away.
Yeah.
Nobody was giving any. And he said, "Why don't you think about going to work in New York?"
Yeah.
And it was the first time I'd really thought about it.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I don't know who I'd work for. And he was the one that suggested working for the Star.
Right.
Not the English Star, but the American Star.
Yeah.
And we had this whole conversation about it. And it was down to him, really, at the beginning, that I came up with the idea.
His idea. Yeah, you stole his idea.
No,
yeah,
I didn't steal it. He suggested to me because he knew that I was a fine up-and-coming young talent. And he thought I'd be wasted sitting around on a taxi rank in London.
Anyway, the report of this gentleman's death was very appealing because he was such a gentleman. His last words were, "I'm going now," as he slipped away. But according to an eyewitness report, he didn't say it with any sense of,
no,
I'm going now.
That's what I mean.
He just said, calm. It was a bit like Captain Oates leaving the tent. I'm
very
going
calm.
Outside now. I may be some time.
You see, I don't think you would go that way. I think if it was you, you would be very melodramatic about it. I mean, look how melodramatic you've been tonight.
What?
You would be so melodramatic.
I haven't been melodramatic.
No, you have.
No,
and
you're
always been very melodramatic about, when you were 36 hours from death and all that. I mean, you would make such a meal of it that people would be bored stiff listening to you. Because your last words would probably go on forever.
I've been factual. Tell you what I found out for you today in one of my health journals, right?
Yeah.
10 reasons why you should be nice.
Well, why don't you project that one onto yourself?
Well, I don't have to because I'm.
Well, you're the one
that
that people are accusing of being horrible.
I'm going to tell you all about that in a minute or two.
Right.
About 10 reasons why it's so good to be nice. Make your life better by being nice to other people. No, you're not.
I'm very nice to other people.
You're cynical.
Do you know what I did the other day?
Cynical and calculating to most
people.
Day? What?
I helped an elderly lady with her bag up a set of stairs.
Isn't
that nice?
What did you do?
I carried her bag up a set of stairs.
What set of stairs?
It was a set of stairs on the underground.
Well, sorry, what's all this about? What are you talking about?
You're saying I'm not nice to people.
No.
I carried a woman's bag up the stairs for her.
Okay, well,
because she was struggling with it.
The last time I helped a lady with a bag, I carried 3 of her bags upstairs myself.
Of course, you'd
I
have to
put one on my back. I'm not joking.
Have to top the story.
It was a huge,
where did you do this?
East Croydon Station.
What were you doing there?
Well, I'd got a train down there because I was on my way down there to see somebody.
Where are the stairs at East Croydon Station?
Well,
there aren't any.
Yes, they
are.
No,
there's a ramp there.
No.
Yeah, you walk up a ramp.
No, these were stairs
East
to get
Croydon Station is a ramp.
No, these were stairs, believe me.
I don't have to believe you because I don't believe you because there's a ramp.
There's a ramp at the top end of the platform. At the bottom end of the platform, there are stairs up to a walkway that goes over the top.
You're making it up.
No, I'm not.
I don't believe you. Porky Vision coming up a little bit later on.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to give any tips or clues away as to what you're going to be talking about yet, or is a teaser too much?
Okay, I will. I'll give you a teaser. It involves an actor who's been involved in a scandal involving a vicar's wife this week.
Oh. Right, I know who you mean.
The vicar's wife,
I know who you mean. Well, I'm not going to say the name.
No, don't say the name.
Give it away.
Don't say the name.
Because before we get to that, of course, and all that sort of tawdriness, we want to talk about 3D printing.
Of course we do.
I've got a sneaking suspicion that, I don't think we're giving any secrets away by saying, technology is not your strong point. And, I mean, I would like to think I'm relatively...
Certainly not your strong point.
Well, I'm slightly more au fait with, modern technology than you are, but what I struggle with is how on earth 3D printing actually works. So, we're going to ask Derek Kenneville, who is a 3D printer and digital fabrication artist, exactly how you could actually recreate something as complicated as the Palmyra Arch of Triumph.
That's right.
Derek, a very good morning to you.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, very well
well,
indeed.
thank you.
Forgive the slightly long-winded introduction. You have to imagine you're dealing with a guy to my right here who struggles with Twitter.
Technophobe.
So, a bit of a technophobe. Doesn't really know how to switch his television on and make it record a programme that he hasn't been able to watch from the night before. So 3D printing has now become something almost commonplace, hasn't it? And I became drawn to this story because I watched a TV report about how this was replicated, this particular Palmyra Arch. And not only was it replicated in marble, but it was replicated the way that it had been just before it was destroyed, i.e. not as it was when it was originally made, but with all the little bits missing.
Complete with cobwebs.
Cobwebs, with little bits of moss in it. I mean, can you just explain in sort of words of one syllable how you're doing this?
Sure. When you want to recreate something that exists in the real world, you can do it kind of one of two ways. You could start with a digital sculpture where you kind of draw something on the computer out of kind of a digital clay.
Right.
Or you can do something like they did with the arch there, which is to take a series of overlapping photographs. If you have enough photographs that cover the full geometry of an object, the computer can turn that into a full three-dimensional model that can then be recreated using digital fabrication technologies like 3D printing.
Right. And the materials that you can then reproduce it in come how exactly? Because I was watching a piece of film which looked like a sort of spray gun effect was being used. And so the creation of the object itself was almost coming out of what looked like a liquid gun. But presumably that wasn't... The end result was obviously marble.
Right. So in this case, it was sort of a reverse of 3D printing. They used a subtractive technology. So they took existing blocks of marble and used a kind of a robotic drill to cut away the unnecessary parts of the object, and they assembled that. But that organization that did that, they have a giant 3D printer that can print concrete. Basically, by shooting out one layer of it at a time, you can slowly build up an object from nothing.
So I find that amazing.
Yeah. Now, Derek, I need more explanation on this, please, because I am a technophobe. When we read stories that criminals can now produce a gun on a 3D printer, OK, what they really mean is that they can produce the overlapping images of how a gun is made, but then surely somebody else with different skills has to go and get the metal and shape it and form it into the actual physical product, which is a gun, don't they?
Right. So in that case, if you have a complex mechanical object, you would usually draw it from scratch on the computer using like very precise digital tools. But in the case of guns specifically, I believe we've mostly seen people kind of fabricating these plastic weapons that are not very reliable. Exactly. Like it would be cheaper and more reliable to just get an illegal gun the normal way, frankly.
But where does the plastic model come from? Where does the fulfilment of this? Is this same machine, the 3D printer, also got a source of plastic which is then shaped into the shape that the computer, the 3D image, has fulminated? What?
Right. With that specific 3D printing technology, you basically have a spool of a plastic thread.
Right.
So if you imagine how a glue gun works, where you're kind of pushing in a material that gets melted, it's the same thing. Like a desktop 3D printer is basically a fancy glue gun that shoots out plastic instead of glue.
Right.
So it'll shoot out one layer of melted plastic. It'll move up and draw another layer of melted plastic on top of that. And by repeating that over and over, you get a full object.
And when was it discovered that 3D printing was something that could become so kind of versatile, if you like? I mean, presumably the idea of it's been around for a while, but for it to now become almost commercially viable, if you like, when did people realise that this could all be done?
Yeah, so it was it was in the mid-1980s when 3D printing was first invented. But what happened was all of that stuff was covered under patents and controlled by just a couple of companies. So 20 years later, when the patents started to expire, that's when hobbyists came along and said, this doesn't have to cost $50,000 or $1 million for a giant machine. We could do this much more cheaply.
Right.
And it kind of built up from there.
Okay.
So now what I'm saying is, Derek, that if we can actually build an arch from a 3D printer, in future, when you buy yourself a new house and there's nothing in that house, there's no furniture in that house, don't you just get a machine and design your own chairs, your own tables, your own cupboards, and just program them into the 3D printer, and suddenly they make them for you?
Yeah, I think we could get to that eventually. There's already a construction company in China that uses recycled construction waste and concrete to 3D print the walls of a house that are kind of lifted into place.
So, I mean, basically, if you have a 3D printer, presumably they come in different sizes and they have different
exactly.
materials.
This one was like a JCB road trip.
I mean, and this is really not, I guess, a question for you, but you are a digital fabrication artist, so presumably you create original art. My worry about watching this report that I saw was they were saying, they can recreate now the pyramids, they could recreate Chichen Itza, they could recreate almost any sculpture of Rodin or anything like that. I mean, in a way, it's just like a copy of a painting, isn't it?
In some ways, but you can't go into a museum and touch any of the sculptures or the paintings on display. So if you're able to 3D print it, people can have a more hands-on relationship with art. But it's not the art, though, is it? It's a copy. That was my slight sort of reservation, I suppose. Yeah, it does bring up some interesting questions about how to perceive the value of something that's come out of a 3D printer, for sure.
Yeah, because, I mean, for example, if you wanted to, I don't know, for whatever reason, recreate Rodin's The Kiss and make 2,000 of them on a 3D printer and sell them all for, $5,000 each, would that not diminish the original piece of art? For me personally, I don't think so. Although some people might say that you have the example of the statue of David, which has been 3D scanned in great detail. But if you want to have access to that data, you have to basically fill out an essay and a non-disclosure agreement. Oh, really?
To preserve what they say is the dignity of the piece.
Right. I see. But could you not just go to where the statue of David is, take a load of pictures of it, and recreate it without asking anyone's permission? Not at a high enough quality for people to say, "Oh, that's just like the original."
Okay. Can I ask you this, Derek? I had a friend once when I worked in.
I don't believe that.
Yeah, when I worked in the English Midlands, and it was very close to Stratford-upon-Avon, which is the home of William Shakespeare. And this friend of mine used to make a living by knocking together phony antique furniture and selling it to gullible American tourists, and I'm not suggesting that you're one of those, obviously, and tell them it was genuine Shakespearean furniture. And when they went back...
Shakespeare.
Yeah. And when they went back to Chicago, he suddenly got a load of orders from all their friends in Chicago saying he got any more Shakespearean furniture. Yeah. So he'd knock a bit more together and he'd send that to them, he'd ship it out to them.
Yeah, that's illegal, I think.
Yeah, exactly. But what I'm saying is, presumably with a 3D printer machine, that would make his job of knocking together fake furniture a lot easier, wouldn't it?
The process is slow enough that it probably wouldn't be commercially viable to do bootleg furniture that way.
Oh, it's typical of you as well to think of an illegal method of making money.
I'm only citing an example of what a mate of mine used to do. I mean, I didn't approve of it, obviously, but
So, Derek, you might think we haven't really got anywhere with this conversation, but I think we've learned something. I mean,
we have.
What do you, I mean, will it be the case in, say, I don't know, the next 10 years that we are all, as we now have laptops, we'll have access to some kind of 3D printer just because it will be the norm?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think we'll necessarily all have them in our homes,
right?
Because we don't all need to run them 24/7. But for sure, we'll be able to walk over to the library or a local makerspace and use one. Absolutely.
Right.
Okay, that's great.
Fascinating. Well, listen, Derek, thank you very much indeed for taking the time to talk to us. Derek Kenneville there, 3D printing expert and digital fabrication artist.
Yeah, excellent.
See, I'm fascinated by this stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, Mike, this 3D printer still has to be connected to a machine that supplies the materials that are going to make the object that you're 3D printing.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
I mean, it's not just, like we've got printers out here at TalkSport. Well, you can't suddenly,
We're lucky if they work at all.
put a photocopy of a painting into the top of the machine and the painting comes out the bottom.
No.
Unless it's connected to something that's producing wood and canvas and paint and oils and all that.
As you know, I mean, you can recreate a painting with the right technology. If you've got the right computer graphics, if you've got the right...
Yeah, but the frame it goes in and everything.
Yeah, but you can recreate all of that on a 3D printer. That's what we're saying.
Yeah, but then that 3D printer has done the graphics, but it has to put the graphics into a machine that has solid materials in it to produce the object.
Well, you heard what he said. That they can either carve marble or they can push out plastic or they can push out any number of different materials.
Yeah, but somebody's got to produce the marble and stick it there like a block of marble, and then the 3D printer then instructs the carving machine how to make the arch. Yeah,
but it's still making the arch. That's the point.
Yeah, it's a bit weird.
Yeah, it is weird. I think we should talk some more about this coming up in the coming months.
No, we've talked enough.
No, but I want to educate you on it because I think it's time.
I don't need educating.
You need educated about a great many things.
Listen, when politicians are up on the old podium there and they've got something to celebrate, just one or something, why do they always... every 30 seconds, point to somebody in the crowd.
We're watching Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
Well, do you know who started that?
Who?
It was Ronald Reagan.
Really?
Because it was one of his tricks. Yeah, Ronald Reagan and Nancy, whenever they came out onto any stage,
right?
And I read a book about this. I can't remember whose book it was. But
right.
It was one of the White House correspondents who said that they invented that as a device because what it meant was that one, they had friends in the audience.
Yes.
And it also meant that they looked as though they were like ordinary people.
Yeah,
because
I see.
If you're an ordinary person walking out onto a stage,
the
first thing you look for is something familiar. And so he actually invented this idea of pointing and waving. But there was nobody there.
So, I'm not just a remote politician.
Yeah.
A load of my mates are in the crowd here. They've been voting for me. And
so
hi,
people,
it was great.
Oh, look, hi over there, and you're saying thanks, and you're connecting with this audience, even though there's actually nobody in there.
Yeah.
So everyone realised that he was the great communicator.
That's right,
And ever since then, they've always copied it.
Everybody does
You're
it.
quite right to pick up on it, because
exactly.
Hillary Clinton is one of the most unlikable people in the world of politics.
Absolutely,
right? I mean, even those who work with her are not exactly enamoured with her.
Well, even her husband has, to go Rogerising himself around the world and around America to get away from it on a regular basis.
Yeah, I don't think he's allowed to do that anymore.
Well, I think he's still at it. Probably.
No, I don't think. I met him in Scotland.
Allegedly.
Right? When he was. It doesn't matter if you say allegedly.
No, it doesn't.
You might as well not bother.
No, I agree.
But, the point is that, he started to look very, very much older once he became a private citizen again. He was no longer president.
Well, funny enough...
I always believed that she let him do what he wanted while he was president. Yeah. But then at the end of that, it was almost as though she took what was, his equipment off him and put it in the fridge and said, you can't have that anymore.
If she... I mean, there's two ways of looking at this. When he was president of the United States of America and the most powerful man in the world, he could do what he likes.
Exactly.
And when...
even Mrs. Clinton couldn't really stop him.
No, she couldn't stop him. And when Monica Lewinsky used to refer to going up to the White House with my presidential knee pads, that was humiliating to... excuse me.
Is that the phrase she used?
She did.
Well, I'm sorry, I wasn't being crude. You're the one that said the presidential knee pads.
I was only saying what she said.
Were they White House issue?
That was exactly her expression.
Yeah.
And there was nothing Hillary could do about it because he was the prez. Even though he was impeached for such behaviour, he got away with it.
Well, he wasn't in the end, was he?
A can of Coke. No, but anyway, an impeachment hearing, I should say.
Yeah.
But now you're absolutely right. If she becomes the president of the United States of America, the most powerful woman in the world, it would be ungainly to be reading repetitive stories of her husband going around Rogerising showgirls like Jennifer. What's her name?
Jennifer Aniston.
No.
The lady.
Jennifer who? They used to go and see when he went out running.
Jennifer
Flowers, yeah. He was out jogging, Hey, Bill, I'm out, I'm Bill Clinton, I go
horizontal jogging, I think she meant.
Oh, a lot of horizontal jogging with Jennifer Flowers, who then shockingly came out in public when he was nominated as a runner for the presidency and said, I've been having an affair with this man for 11 years. And Hillary knew all about it and didn't care.
Can you imagine, actually, what the scenario will be like in the next year? Because obviously, come January, a new president will be inaugurated.
That's right.
I mean, it will either be, regardless of what John Le Batellier said to us the other week about whether he thinks it might be somebody other than Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. Yes. It seems like it's going to be one of them, doesn't it?
Well, it's got to be Hillary Clinton, hasn't it? Because I don't know why, but I do believe that the American people have decided, Donald Trump is a freak of nature, and they're just going to tolerate him purely for the circus effect until he gets to vote him for a president.
He's a bit like the Leicester City of American politics.
Yes,
Everybody keeps expecting him to falter. Everybody keeps expecting him to say something that's going to make it impossible for him to be in charge.
Yes,
he keeps completely and utterly sort of ignoring all the pundits and all the conventional wisdom, and he keeps getting more votes.
That's right. The Clinton's daughter is called Chelsea, isn't she?
She is.
Now, when she meets somebody and have this sort of conversation over dinner, what do your folks do, Chelsea?
Well, I think most people who are having dinner with her probably know.
Yeah, but I mean, suppose they didn't. Suppose a guy from a Martian from Mars arrived. Yeah. And
suppose that happened.
And she said, well...
I can't believe I've just asked you how you see the next 12 months in American politics, and you've just come out with that nonsense.
No, well, my pop was the president of the United States for 8 years, and then my mom was the Secretary of State for the United States for 4 years, and now my mom is the president. I mean...
Yeah, but you see, the circles in which some of these people move...
Yeah, exactly.
That is not considered to be unusual.
Well, the only other family who can match them are the Bushes, aren't they?
Yeah. No, but I mean, when they go to places like, Block Island for the summer, and they go to, Fisher's Island for the summer...
That's right, yeah.
You see these people, these overprivileged kids, whose parents are either running massive corporations...
Maybe.
Or they're kind of, the ambassador to the Court of St. James,
maybe.
Or my dad's the president. It's all very normal for them.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, imagine, for instance, if Mrs. Bush Senior, so that's the wife of the first President Bush.
You mean Barbara Bush?
Barbara Bush, that's right, yeah. Imagine if
she's still alive.
Yes, she's still alive, yeah. They're all still alive.
You sure?
Yeah. Imagine if she went to some sort of woman's refuge or something, and they've been out of power a long time now. No,
woman's refuge?
Yeah.
Where'd you get this stuff from?
Well, these people do. That's what they do.
You're not the hippie crack,
No, they're do-gooders. They're do-gooders, aren't they? And imagine if...
No, they're not.
Yeah, they are.
They're absolutely not.
Well, Jimmy Carter was a do-gooder. Jimmy Carter was a hopeless president.
Yeah, but he was a Democrat.
But he was
Republicans are not do-gooders.
He was a hopeless president, and he was so bad that he decided that he'd spend the rest of his life building wooden shacks for poor people in Alabama to make up for being such a hopeless president. Yeah, Georgia and Atlanta. He was a peanut farm, wasn't he, from Atlanta?
He was.
Anyway,
I have lust in my heart.
Yeah, I have lust in my heart. I went and saw him once where they dedicated a block of lavatories to him in some place in Georgia,
Well,
some little
where
town.
He was from in Georgia.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. Yeah,
I can't remember.
In Plains. It was in Plains.
Plains, Georgia.
It was in the town of Plains. Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, I'm supposing Barbara Bush, who's now aged about 90.
I think she is about 90.
When she sat down with one of these younger women in the refuge, and the woman said, Mrs. Bush, it's so kind of you to come and see us today.
Is this how you came up with some of your stories?
No.
You just sort of imagine a scenario.
And imagine if the young lady said, and what did your husband do? And she said, well, he was the President of the United States of America. Oh, that's great. And do you have any children? Yes, I've got 4 sons. Oh, what do they do? Well, one of them was the President of the United States of America.
Yeah, the other one's the Governor of Florida.
Governor of Florida and a failed runner for the President of the United States of America. It's amazing.
Yeah.
These political families, that's all they do. I'm not in favour of political families because they live off public money.
You'd like to be one of them, though,
No, I would not, no.
But in America, they don't live off public money. They live off private money. That's what the big row's about.
Yeah, I suppose it is.
Because they all go around collecting massive amounts of money from big corporations.
Look at the Kinnock family in this country.
Yeah.
So many of the Kinnock family have lived off public money for so long that the sense of entitlement now goes through generations.
Yeah.
So Stephen Kinnock, who is
now the MP for Cardiff, I think,
exactly.
The constituency to the show, so you can slag him off.
The constituency that covers Port Talbot Steelworks, right? Yeah. He's spent all his life...
I don't think he covers that particularly. I think he's Cardiff Central, isn't he?
No. Port Talbot Steelworks is in his constituency, definitely. And what I'm saying is that, the minute that Kinnock was rejected twice by the British people here...
Yeah.
He went off and some idiot Tory gave him a job as a commissioner of the European Parliament.
That's right.
The European Commission, I'm sorry.
Isn't he also married to a Danish MP?
Well, no, I'm talking about Kinnock Senior.
Oh, Kinnock
So
Senior,
he goes off and becomes a commissioner, which is not an elected job, it's an appointed job.
That's right.
Rakes in hundreds of thousands, if not millions, in expenses, entitlements, free homes, free cars, and then his wife gets in on the act.
When the Sunday Times did that story many years ago, I was working at the Welsh Mirror at the time,
right?
And we followed it up and did a similar story in the Mirror on the Monday.
Yes,
and he rang the editor and tried to get me fired.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, it was a good idea.
The Daily Mirror should not be trying to follow the ghastly Rupert Murdoch empire's lies and smears about me.
Just shows you how deluded these
it was
people
all
are.
true.
Just shows how
It's all true.
Oh, yeah, of course it's all true, but you mustn't expose it. You know, I work for the public sector, don't you know? I'm the famous Neil Kinnock.
Yeah.
I can do anything I want because I'm, a failed Labour prime ministerial candidate.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Stephen Kinnock's a member of Parliament for Aberafon.
Yes, that's right.
So you may be right about
I
that.
am right.
He's married to Helle Thorning-Schmidt.
He used to be
who was the Danish Prime Minister.
Danish
or
Prime
something
Minister.
like
She's not anymore.
No, something
very,
like that.
very attractive lady, though.
Really? What's that got to do with anything?
Well, it's got everything to do with everything,
Really?
in my view. As your TV reviewer, I can reveal there are no plans for a new series.
Yeah, no, but it wasn't their previous series.
Oh, hang on, wait a minute. It says here there might be a new series. What's your problem?
That music can only signal one thing, and it's time for Porky Vision, of course. It's that time of the week where Porky tells us what he's been looking at on television, what he'd like to recommend, and maybe some of the things that he would not like to recommend.
Yes.
So what do you got for us this week, Porky?
Right, well, let me tell you. Have you heard of a place called Grantchester?
Well, I know there's a show called Grantchester.
Well, no, there's a place called Grantchester.
Is there an actual place called Grantchester? A real place?
It's a little town just outside Cambridge, and its most famous resident is the author, Geoffrey Archer.
Oh, yeah.
And his wife, Mary.
Oh, yes.
And they live...
very fragrant Mary.
Very fragrant Mary. They live in the vicarage. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
That could be dangerous.
Well, I mean, it's
given who works in Grantchester.
Oh, well, who?
Well, the man you're about to talk about.
Oh, right, I see. No,
his reputation at vicarages.
No, but what I was going to say is that's the connection, because what I'm going to tell you about is the show called Grantchester, right? Now, the show called Grantchester stars... what's his name? It is Jerome Robson, isn't it? No, what's his name?
Jerome Robson will do.
No.
Everybody knows him as that now.
No, what's his name?
Robson Green.
Robson Green. I keep getting that confused. Right.
Yeah.
Now, Robson Green...
Robson and Jerome, wasn't it?
Robson and Jerome, that's right. Now, Robson Green, right, is a man who is literally a professional Geordie.
Yeah.
Everything that involves anything in the northeast of England, he's in it.
Right.
Catherine Cookson wrote all them books about Newcastle.
Well, I didn't know they were about Newcastle.
Yeah, they were about Newcastle.
I've heard of her,
And one of them was called The Gambling Man, and Robson Green was in that.
Was he?
Yeah, he was a man who was a gambler, who got beaten up and all this kind of stuff.
He wasn't in Spender, was he?
No, he wasn't in Spender. That was the other guy, Crocodile Shoes. Yeah. Anyway, the point of the story is...
Yeah.
He teams up with is the boy called Norton?
I've never seen the show.
No, hang on. Who's the latest new heartthrob? Norton. It's James Norton, isn't it?
James Norton? I don't know.
No, well, the guy who
James Norton's the guy from the Today programme, isn't he?
No, hang on. The guy I'm talking about was in War and Peace.
You're not talking about the guy from Poldark?
No.
He takes his shirt off a lot.
No, hang on.
Or Tim Hiddleston, or whatever his name is.
No, not Hiddleston. This guy has recently been in Happy Valley, where he was the villain.
Well, I've never seen that.
The guy who's locked up in jail.
Yeah.
Then he was in War and Peace.
Yeah.
Now he's in Grantchester.
Okay.
Is it James Norton?
I haven't seen any of those shows.
I'm looking towards the old gallery. They're going to find
don't
out.
know.
For us. I think it's James Norton. Anyway,
I don't know.
He's the guy with the carrot-coloured hair, OK?
Oh, OK.
Now,
you're not talking about Damien Lewis?
No, not Damien Lewis,
He's
you
got
idiot.
carrot-coloured hair.
No.
What are you calling me an idiot for? I'm trying to help you out.
Yeah, well, you're not helping me out. Now, listen,
Shocking.
What I was going to say is, now, this Grantchester, the reason I've focused on this is that this involves a vicar. This involves Robson Green is an incompetent policeman.
Right.
I mean, the worst policeman in the world, detective inspector, who can't even recognise a dead body when it's lying in front of him, you know what I mean? And who can only solve crimes when he gets the help of James Norton, who plays the local vicar in Grantchester. Right?
But doesn't Robson
Who's
have
called
a bit
Sydney.
But doesn't Robson have a bit of a real-life vicarage scenario going on?
Well, this is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And the way that, what's it called, drama is mirroring real life, or real life is mirroring drama, is that we had reports in the paper this week, in fact, it was broken in the Sunday Mirror, that Robson Green has run off with the vicar's wife.
Yeah.
And, this struck me as being an amazing irony. Now, for instance, one plot in Grantchester involves a bloke who died by falling off the top of one of the Cambridge colleges.
Oh, yeah.
Because as you can appreciate, most of the action goes on in Cambridge, you see, because that's the nearest big town.
Right.
That's where all the
Are they
universities
trying to ape sort of Morse and Lewis and all that?
Maybe a little bit.
That's all Oxford,
but it's
isn't
this weird relationship between the copper, Detective Inspector somebody, played by Robson Green, and I think it's James Norton.
And the vicar, I think it is James Norton.
Yeah, James Norton, the vicar, whose name is Sydney.
Right.
Now, the problem is that the cop is so stupid, played by Robson Green, he keeps going around scratching his head, and James Norton keeps solving all the crimes.
Right.
So, for instance, when the bloke, who fell off the top of the building and to his death, first of all, Robson Green said, well, he's probably committed suicide.
Yeah.
James Norton said, no, I don't think it is that, well, in that case, he must have been murdered. He said, no, I don't think it's that either.
I'm sure you've told me this story before.
Yeah, why?
This particular guy falling off the top of the...
Yeah, well, that's just one plot. But, I mean,
Yeah.
for instance... Robson Green's a very weird cop. He can't solve any crimes without the help of the vicar.
Well, do you remember that show he was in where he played the sort of psychologist who was helping the police?
What was that, The Wire or something?
Not The Wire, but it was Wire in the Blood, I think.
Wire in the Blood, okay, I don't know about that.
But it was very gory. And he was very strange in that as well.
Okay, well, he's in
He
it.
specialises in being a sort of complicated figure, doesn't he?
Well, no, it's weird. What he does, he spends most of his time in the local pub, this cop, right? And this is, it's based in 1950s England.
Oh, is it?
Or it might be 1930s, but
Really?
it's either the 1930s or the 1950s.
But it's not present day. Can you not tell by the cars?
Yeah, I think it's
Fatty Arbuckle in it.
No, he's not in it. But the problem is the cop cars are so old, I can't tell if they're 1930s or 1950s.
Well, the 30s, 50s cars are quite different.
I think it might be the 30s.
30s cars look a bit more like sort of Model T Fords.
It's sort of Dixon and Doc Green
50s
era.
look a bit more like Morris Oxfords.
Yeah, I think it might be the 50s. But anyway, the point of the story is, so he spends most of his time sitting in a pub, drinking beer.
Well, it's Robson Green.
Yes, it's Robson Green, the cop, and playing backgammon.
Backgammon?
Backgammon.
Who with?
Well, with anybody you can find.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's really weird.
Oh, I like backgammon.
Is it when you open a board? Is the board folded in
it's
two?
in a box.
Open it?
Well, it's in a box,
And
usually.
what's the principle of backgammon?
It's basically you have to you try and get from one end of the box to the other. It's a sort of it's like a chess game, except it's you move in different ways.
Okay.
And it's a big gambling game as well.
Okay, and this cop is so useless. I mean, he can't even tell, for instance, when you see in a complicated plot recently. Old James Norton, Sydney, the vicar, he got arrested because a schoolgirl had gone missing and she'd written in a diary that she'd been getting Rogerised by the vicar.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. So, yeah. So he gets arrested, and unfortunately, Robson Green, his mate, has to interview him and say, well, have you been interfering with this young... No, how could you doubt me? And all of a sudden, Robson Green... The cop, the inspector, saying, so, maybe he's not the man I knew and all that. But it turns out that although James Norton was not Rogerising this young girl, another vicar was.
Oh, dear.
So they must stuck the vicars, you see what I mean?
See.
Yeah.
So a vicar from another place.
Yeah, so she'd been writing in a diary, the vicar has been giving me one, but it wasn't...
So nicely put.
Well, if you see what I mean, see what I mean. But it wasn't...
and was the vicar from outside of Grantchester then?
No, well, the vicar was actually James Norton's boss. He was he was kind of, like the dean of the parish or something like that. You see what I mean?
The top man.
Yeah, and he had a dog collar with a purple shirt.
He would have,
Whereas James Norton, Sydney,
Just
the
has a
vicar,
black one.
just has a black one.
Yeah.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
So, but the problem is that...
It's all very sordid, isn't it?
Yeah, but,
Why do these shows have to be so sordid?
I don't know. Now, on another one, and by the way...
Are you telling us Grantchester's good, by the way, or not?
Well, it's okay.
Yeah.
I can't make my mind up. I can't mind up whether it's too stupid.
Is it in the middle of a series, or is it finished?
It's. I think there's one more to go in a series of 6 or something. But anyway, in one. So how about this? This is the frail personality of the cop played by Robson Green, right? He suddenly discovers that his newborn baby has probably got scarlet fever.
Right.
So wouldn't you think that a man who has the steely character of a detective inspector in a rural town like Grantchester would immediately, take this with fortitude?
Yeah.
No, he doesn't. He goes off on the ale for a week.
Goes and gets drunk.
Goes and gets...
Robson Green does.
Robson Green, he's sloshing around.
He can't handle it.
Can't handle it. So Sydney, the vicar, goes after him and said, look, don't you think you should be at home with your family?
Yeah.
And he said, I can't handle it, Why? Oh, you don't know what it's like to have a sick child and all this sort of nonsense.
How bizarre.
Anyway, the child...
Sounds like old cobblers.
Yeah, it is a load of cobblers. Anyway, the child turns out not to have scarlet fever.
Right.
So the wife walks in this pathetic scene and says, oh, his fever's broken. And Robson Green says...
Is she and Geordie as well?
Yeah, sort of, yeah.
Sort of.
And Robson Green says...
Fever's broken?
Yeah. And Robson Green says... I am so sorry. And bursts into tears. So it's old Sydney again, the vicar, right, who has to, be the man in the relationship, say, don't worry, mate, it's anybody. Well, in fact, he should have. Now, anyway, where this gets to, in the end, is that all the time...
You don't have to give the end away.
No. All the time, James Norton is a very handsome vicar, right?
And what about
Sydney?
The Rogerising vicar isn't?
Well, here we go. Well, the Rogerising vicar's gone to jail now. He was done.
Oh, blimey.
Yeah,
that didn't take long.
Yeah. Well,
did they find the girl then?
Well, unfortunately, she died.
Oh.
That was
Did he kill her?
No.
Don't tell me.
No, I'll tell you what happened. What happened was...
Well, I don't think you should tell us what happened.
She thought she was pregnant by the vicar.
Yeah.
So one of her mates, who was a schoolboy, poured a load of ammonia down her throat because they thought that would abort the baby.
Really?
It was very sad, and she
What a
died.
terrible show.
Yeah. But anyway, look, the punchline to all this is James Norton is constantly...
Have you seen the time?
Yeah, he's constantly being singled out by the local ladies of the area
He doesn't have a partner.
from rich families, and he's into a bit of Rogerising and all that, right? So he gets a grip of a woman who's married. Right?
Yeah.
We don't know whether Rogerisation has taken place, but the husband, who's a sort of former RAF officer, turns around and says, Rick, I've got to have a word with you, please. And James Norton says, yes, what is it? Can I help you with? And the bloke pulls his fist back, his right fist, and goes bang, and smashes Sydney the vicar in the face and says... That's a warning to stay away from my wife. So old James Norton's getting a reputation as being a right old,
Surprising
3
you
times a night Rogeriser.
Surprised you never had that kind of treatment. Really.
Well, I mean,
a number of husbands that you were sort of creeping around behind their backs.
Oh, don't worry, I had a huge husband alert antenna in my head.
Did you?
Never got anywhere near me.
No, okay.
No, believe me.
So that's it then. Is that your Porky vision for the week?
Yeah, that's Grantchester. A confused plot of a vicar who's constantly in demand for Rogerisation.
Yeah.
A cop who's as thick as my fridge door, can't solve any crimes. Even when people throw themselves off the roof of Cambridge colleges, you can't work out whether they've committed suicide or decided that his mate murdered him.
No, shocking.
Yeah.
Sounds like one not to watch.
Okay.
Why are you looking at me like that?
I'm assessing things. Assessing.
You're assessing things. There's a lot of interesting tweets that have come in, actually.
Really?
One particularly, I've just caught my eye, from Alex, who says this at the 2 mics. More gerrymandering by Porky. I tried to vote at 4 p.m. UK time, but it appeared to be closed.
What?
Seems Porky paid someone off.
No.
Hashtag plank.
No, not at all.
James says vote Porky, vote often, which I'm afraid is still a very recurrent theme.
Yes.
Jokur says 5 seconds in and Porky's shouting again.
Yeah, I'm not.
Proud Dad says 50-50. Yeah. I didn't vote as you were both weak, but I would have gone for old MG. Add my vote and it's sorted.
Yeah.
No, well, we've already declared
just don't bother voting again, pal, whatever your name is.
We've already... Well, he hasn't voted at all. That's what he's saying.
Yeah, well, don't vote future then, because he was going to vote for you.
Yeah. Steve says this, if there was an odd number of votes, one of you must have more than the other. He's not daft, this guy, Steve.
Yeah, he's not stupid,
But the thing is, Steve...
It's percentages.
It's percentages, and I don't know how Twitter does it, which is why it's always been ludicrous for anyone to suggest that I've in some way mixed up the vote, because I don't decide what it is. People vote, 700 and however many, and the machine itself gives a percentage.
Now, one of those correspondents was Alex, yeah?
Alex, yes.
You don't get many Alex in life, do you?
Yeah, you do.
No, you don't.
There's loads of Alexes.
No, there's not. It's a rare name. But one of my great uncles was Uncle Alex.
Uncle Alex.
A great guy.
Was he mad as well?
Well, he was a bit, but we didn't know why he was mad for so many years. And then we found out.
What?
Found out he had diabetes. And he was the first guy sort of diagnosed with diabetes in sort of North Wales.
Right.
Because he lived across the border in a place called Mould.
Mould, yes.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
Where the Crown Court is.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. And he was ever such a nice chap,
was he?
Uncle Alex. He was big, sturdy guy. He used to be a policeman in Liverpool.
Well, diabetes in those days was quite a serious illness.
He was 6'4".
It wasn't easy to manage, right?
Yeah, he was 6'4". And he wasn't mad at all, but in those days when little was known about medical science, he'd go into a bit of a, a dream, you know what I mean? And we didn't know what was going on. It's because he had diabetes and you get low blood sugar levels, you know what I mean? And then you start acting funny and all that kind of stuff because nobody knew.
Yeah.
But we found out that he had diabetes. Amazing story.
How did you find out?
Well, when...
Did you ask him?
Eh? No. Well, how he found out, actually.
Well, how did he find out?
Well, he liked to drink.
Yeah.
In fact, the only time my father ever took a drink was when he and Uncle Alex got together, if it was a sort of family reunion. Yeah.
Well, your father didn't drink other than that.
My father didn't drink for 27 years after the war.
What?
He didn't drink for 27 years. I don't know. He was a heavy drinker during the war, as all people were,
Right.
trying to get away from the horrors of warfare and all that kind of
The
stuff.
horrors of warfare.
Well, he was a Navy sailor.
Well, yes,
if
a
you see what I
Navy
mean.
sailor.
Well, if you see what I mean.
Well,
he
so
was,
you say.
he was a
Well,
sailor.
what
in the
horrors
Royal
of
Navy.
war did he witness?
Well, he witnessed all his mates getting blown up when
Well,
his ship got attacked and
Well,
sunk
so
in the
what? He
Atlantic.
miraculously survived and everybody else died. Is that it?
Well, some of them died, and
Really?
he did survive, yeah. I
Really?
mean, he was lucky. I mean, a lot of people did survive the war, but a lot of people, unfortunately, got killed.
Yeah, a lot
but,
of them did.
My
But isn't it coincidence that somebody related to you was involved in some massive battle and was not in any way injured?
No, it was just luck. It was just luck. Loads of men did die, unfortunately.
Just luck.
Well, of course it's just luck. What else do you think it is?
Well, I don't know.
Think we're the chosen ones or something?
Well, it might have been that either it didn't happen, or it
did happen.
or it might be that he was somehow
Navy records,
or
it
it
did
might
happen.
somehow be that he wasn't putting himself in harm's way.
What are you suggesting? My father was some kind of a coward.
Possibly.
That's a terrible thing to say.
Possible.
Well, your father didn't even fight in the war.
No,
your
he wasn't
father went
old
off to
enough.
Canada.
He wasn't old enough.
Well, he was old enough to fly
There's no
Lancaster
need to-
bombers,
there's no need to get
apparently.
nasty about it.
I thought you told me he was
no need to get
an
nasty.
instructor in Lancaster bomber warfare.
No, he wasn't. He was a
So if he-
navigator.
But if he was
No,
old
he
enough
was a
to-
navigator.
He's old enough to get into a Lancaster bomber. He's old.
Yeah, but by the time he was trained...
Well, why didn't he navigate a Lancaster bomber over Dortmund and
Because-
Bremen
because
and
you
Berlin
complete plank.
instead of navigating it over a redwood forest in Canada?
Well,
because Canada
as
actually
I've-
were on
as
our
I've-
side.
as
Didn't
I've
you know that?
as I've explained to you many times, but you
Yes.
haven't been able to get into your thick head.
No, I
By
haven't,
the time
because it
he
doesn't
was
make
trained,
sense.
By
Yeah.
the time he was trained,
Oh,
the war was
miraculously,
over.
the war was over.
Yeah.
Oh, how lucky was that?
Yeah,
eh?
but I don't pretend that he was involved in
how
it.
lucky was that?
I don't pretend that he was some kind of war
Yeah,
hero,
yeah.
whereas you do. Because, of course, everybody who's
No, I don't
related to
pretend,
you...
I just state the facts.
Everyone who's related to you is remarkable.
Well,
For example,
yes.
the guy called Alex
Yes.
is the first person in North Wales to ever have diabetes.
Well, yeah.
For example,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, you had some other relative who was the first person ever to do something else.
Yeah, that's
You know,
right.
They're all top of their field, aren't
Hang on,
they?
I was the first person in my family to have dilated cardiomyopathy. All right? Hey?
I don't think there's an award for
You
that.
know? Now, I was going to say to you
By
about
the
my
way,
Uncle
on the
Alex.
subject of
Yes.
the name Alex,
Yes.
you don't think there are many people called Alex, do you?
Well, there aren't these days a lot. There's a few, I agree.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a few listed on an email here, like Alex
Yeah.
Ferguson,
Alex Ferguson,
Alex
yeah.
McLeish.
Alex
Sanchez,
Alex.
Alex Song. Alex. Anyway, the
Alex Litvinenko.
Right. So what happened was, whenever my dad and my Uncle Alex went for a drink, which is very rare because
Yeah.
my dad didn't drink. They had
So
a few
you say.
pints on Saturday
Yeah.
night. When he went to the urinal,
What?
right? Well, he went to the
I don't
urinal.
want to know about what they did in the toilets.
No. This is a medical fact. The bottoms of his trousers went stiff. Now, I know that sounds ridiculous, but it was because
Yeah.
the splashback, because there weren't splashback boards in those days.
This is very, very detailed.
Well, I'm sorry,
More
but-
information that we require.
Well, I'm just telling you how it all happened. There was sugar in his urine,
Yeah,
you know,
right.
and that made his trousers stiff.
Right.
And that's how they found out me Uncle Alec had diabetes.
Well, he must have been putting quite a lot of that onto his trousers.
Well, he wasn't. It was like...
Did he never wash them? I mean, for heaven's sake.
Well, I'm sure
was
he
he some
did.
kind of old tramp?
No. That's a terrible thing to say about my Uncle Alex.
Yeah.
No, but that was... and then after that, he had to have, like...
Well, so he went to the doctor and said, "Look, doctor, I've got this terrible problem. The bottoms of my trousers are very stiff."
Yes.
What do you think that
Yes.
could be caused by?
Well, no, somebody told him. It was one of those situations where, in conversation sometime, you know, I think he crossed his legs one time and somebody said, "Why are your trousers so stiff?" or something like that.
Right.
And he said, "I don't know." And somebody said, "You know what that could be?" And then it went from
Maybe
there.
it was just that he hadn't washed them for a few weeks.
No, it wasn't. No, it
It's a
wasn't.
shocking story.
No. And then he... and then, do you know what they gave him as a... Do you know what his first prescription was to combat diabetes?
I don't know. Well, they didn't have insulin in those days.
No, they
did
didn't have insulin. So do you know what it was?
No.
A Mars bar a day.
A Mars bar?
Yeah, Mars bar a day.
That's not a very good idea.
Well, there's loads of glucose in a
Yeah.
Mars bar, and that's what
I
you're
used to
missing.
know.
when
Do you
when
remember a guy
you're,
called John King, who used to be the Bristol
Yes,
correspondent
yes,
for the
I know
Express?
very well.
His wife was a diabetic. And
okay.
we went on a tour of Ireland,
Yeah.
a golfing tour of Ireland.
Yes.
I can't remember why she was there.
Right.
But there was various people in various cars.
Yeah.
And she always used to carry like a croissant or something in her bag.
Oh, I see,
Because
yeah.
being a diabetic, if she didn't eat, she could become faint.
Yes, that's right,
And
yeah.
she used to have something sugary
Well,
all the time.
In Godfather 3, Al Pacino nearly collapsed in the monastery, didn't he? Until
No.
they gave him a
You
big...
know what? Godfather 3 is a film that I've only watched once.
A big jug of orange juice, don't you remember?
No, it's a film I've only watched once, and
Well,
I don't
yeah.
intend to watch it again because it's a terrible film.
I thought it was a bad film as well.
No.
I'll tell you something. You're talking about the wives of... Because John King was a correspondent on the Daily Express in the West Country.
I just said that. He
Do you
was
remember
the Bristol correspondent.
Do you remember Gentleman John Lay?
John Lay. Not really.
He
no.
was the Northern Ireland correspondent based in Belfast, right? And Johnny was an Englishman in Northern Ireland, you know, and he was a member of the local yacht club in, was it Newcastle up on the coast there? Yeah, it was Newcastle, yeah. And
up towards the Giant's Causeway.
That's right, yeah. And there's some
Beautiful
great golf clubs around there, yeah.
Well, Port Rush, where Rory McIlroy comes from.
Absolutely. So old Johnny Lay, you know, Gentleman John, oh, hello, John Lay, Daily Express. Of course, this went down very well in Northern Ireland, you know.
Yeah, I bet.
And he was invited into the yacht club and all that kind of
Not
stuff.
on the Falls Road.
Oh, no, he wasn't very popular down the Lower Falls. That's absolutely true. But anyway, there was a suspicion that, John knew a lot of coppers, you know, in the RUC, as it was in those days, Royal Ulster Constabulary.
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of them used to come round to his house for drinks and all that, you know, making contacts and all that. And then John used to bore them to death by playing marching military music.
Right.
Military bands.
Yeah.
You know, not exactly, not the Beatles, is it? You know what I mean?
It's not, no.
And anyway,
they like a bit of marching band music down in Belfast.
Yeah, I think they do. But anyway, one night this copper came round, you know, and they're all having a party. And this cop mentioned, this superintendent or whatever, mentioned he had a lie detector machine in the car.
Right.
And anyway...
I wish we had a lie detector machine.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Anyway, everybody suspected that Gentleman John Lay's wife was actually seeing, you know, somebody she shouldn't have been seeing.
Oh, right. What, for the RUC?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
That's a bit tricky, that, isn't it?
So they got the lie detector machine out the car, and they said, "Oh, come on!" I can't remember her name now. And by the way, if John's still alive, he is a great guy, and this is not a story telling against him. You know, this is
that's good. What about his wife?
Well, yeah, I'm sure she may still be alive. She's a lovely lady. But anyway, somebody said, "Oh, come on, I think her name is Angela. Might not have been Angela. It could have been something else.
Could have been Alex.
No, it wasn't Alex, definitely. Although a lady can be called Alex, of course.
Of course.
Alex Chung.
Alex Chung.
Isn't she a lady?
Yeah, why would you think of her?
I don't know. It's the first Alex lady I could remember.
What about Alex, the woman from, isn't she on the One Show? Alex somebody.
Oh, yes.
Alex Jones.
Alex Jones.
Yeah.
Do you remember Alexandra Bastardo?
Yes, Bastardo.
Bastardo, yeah, that's right. Yeah. She was in... what's the problem?
She was in a couple of spaghetti westerns,
wasn't she in The Champions as well?
She was, I think, yeah.
You know, these people had mystical powers.
Bastido or something, yeah.
Yeah.
This is rubbish.
Do you know why they had mystical powers? Because they were in a private airplane that crashed on the top of the Himalayas.
That's right.
And these Tibetan monks rescued them and gave them magic powers. And then they could run at like 60 miles an hour and all this kind of stuff.
And none of them had stiff trousers, funnily enough. They've come a long way from diabetes.
No, that's
For heaven's sake.
That's
right,
true.
we'll have to try and make some sense of all of this. Because you've just reminded me of a couple of stories as well. We will get to the end of whatever it is we're getting to
and we must talk about Everton. It's very important.
You see how he's trying to avoid it? You see what he's doing? Filibustering. We are the two mics. Ask Porky coming up a little bit later on. I've got so many tweets that I should start reading some of these out.
Okay.
Craig says this.
Why are you playing Madness, by the way?
Well, because it's part of one of... I've told you before about our Spotify playlist, right? Right.
Okay, yeah.
We play quite a lot of songs on a regular basis, but also this is Baggy Trousers, isn't it?
Baggy Trousers.
Yeah.
Oh, Baggy Trousers, the trousers. Clever, that.
It is
clever. That. I like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of thought goes into this show, you know. Here's one from Craig, who says, maybe Uncle Alex's trousers were bored stiff if the pub conversation was anything like Porky on the radio.
That's a bit harsh, isn't it?
How about this from Chris? Stiff trousers, family who's first at everything. What is Porky on? It's true, actually. Your family first at everything.
Well, you know, we're pathfinders, if you see what I mean. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Here's one from David. Thanks for the etiquette on peeing. Do you adhere to that when you're bladderated?
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah. I just, it was a medical fact, you see. That's the only reason I was talking. I normally shy away from anything to do with lavatorial humour. I hate all that.
I
can't
it as
stand
well.
it. I really can't. So, but anyway, it was
several
a medical
other tweets which have to do with
need.
stiff trousers, which I'm not going to read out because they're not quite right.
No.
And here's one from Steve, who says, once again, Mike Parry's putting old MG's dad down. Open up winners and losers.
You put my dad down.
I did not.
You insinuated my father was a coward.
I asked a question, that was all.
Yeah, well, the question was a very leading question.
If it was anything to do with you, your father was single-handedly won World War II.
Well, I didn't say that, but he was very influential in
he was very influential.
I've been to the very spot.
What voice is that you've come up with?
To the very spot where he departed these shores on the D-Day invasion.
Well, that's what he told you.
He never knew he was going to come back.
Yeah, but he did, though, didn't
My
he?
father walked around Goodison Park dock when he was 17 years of age, one last time before he got on board his ship in the port of Liverpool and sailed off to war, and he didn't come back for 2.5 years. He didn't know if he'd ever see Goodison again.
Right, really.
Now, getting back to...
I haven't finished reading out some of these tweets.
Okay.
How about this one from Andrew?
Right.
Elliot Ness died of a heart attack in Pennsylvania, not of alcoholism in Chicago. Just saying.
Well, he had a very deep interest in bladderation matters just before he died, believe me.
Well, of course he had a deep interest in it because he was enforcing prohibition.
No, he was drinking it. He was making up for the lost years. By the way, it was the most stupid law that any country in the free world has ever imposed upon its people, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I
course it
suppose
is.
you might have said that there have been other things imposed upon people which have been more damaging to them.
I said in the free world. In the free world, to say to somebody you can't have an alcoholic drink, I mean, it's a madness.
Well, what would you refer to as the free world?
The free world is a world where people vote democratically for those who rule them.
What, like, I mean, in Germany just before the war, for example, that was the free world.
Yes, it was, yeah.
Yeah, well, they imposed a few things on people that were a bit more dangerous than not drinking.
Well, you could say that, except for the fact that you've got to remember the democratic process only went so far in pre-war Germany.
Yeah, but people elected Hitler, didn't they? He didn't just take power.
They elected Hitler when they thought Hitler was a quote, national socialist.
Doesn't matter what they thought. The point
thought he was going to spread wealth and all that.
The point is they elected him.
Yeah, but then he changed himself into a dictator. So it wasn't a free government that imposed the horrendous strictures upon the German people.
Right.
It was a dictatorship.
How about this one from Les
You
in
don't know
Manchester?
much about European history, you?
Yeah. Well, you haven't worked out what you're going to even do the quiz on yet. I was listening to H&J today, he says, and they played the theme tune to the old TV show Branded, starring Chuck Connors. Remember that one?
No,
Branded.
I don't think I do.
Born with a sword of shame. Remember that
Branded.
one? What do you do when you're branded, when you fight for your name? I'm not going to sing it. You don't remember that?
What do you do when you're branded?
When you fight for your name, you must remember.
When you fight for your name.
This
is a Western.
Yeah, it was like a Western show, and at the beginning he's standing there, and they strip the stripes off him, and they strip the
I remember that a bit. Yeah,
here he is.
Not a charge was true.
You sure
the charge was true?
But the world would never know. Branded,
That's it.
scorned as the one who ran. What do you do when you're branded and you know you're a man?
Well, that's a bit of a dilemma, that, isn't it?
What
do you do when you're branded and you know you're a man? Eh? I mean,
life you must prove.
Chuck Connors.
You're a man. You don't remember that?
Yeah, well, I remember Chuck Connors.
Yeah.
Wasn't he in The Rifleman as well? Didn't he carry a big rifle around, go around blowing people away?
I don't know.
Yeah, he did. He did. Yeah, I remember.
That might have been before my time.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was going to read you the rest of this.
Okay.
Anyway, this guy says, Les in Manchester says,
Yes.
it would be great if you could play some old TV themes during your show after each break, especially from the 60s and 70s. Well, thanks for the suggestion, Les.
Yeah,
We'll see.
yeah.
But anyway, Zen says,
Yes.
Could you please ask Mr. Parry, when he worked at Daily Express on Great and Coat Street, did he frequent the drinking establishment across the road from the Express in Newton Street, which was called the Lander Cakes? Where I remember most of the guys from the Express used to come into every day.
Yeah.
And I had many a conversation with some of them. And if Mr. Parry went in there, he was probably one of the people I spoke to.
Not only was the Lander Cakes one of the Express drinking pubs, there was one next door in the same building as the Black Ruby Amber.
That's not what I asked you.
Called the Crown and Kettle. But the Lander Cakes was brilliant, right?
So did you go in there?
All the time.
Right.
And a guy called Jerry Dempsey, who was a Welshman, you know.
Gerrymander.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. No, old Jerry
Seen
Dempsey.
the time, by the way.
Jerry Dempsey had a very red face, and he was the most idle, well, amongst the most idle journalists in the world.
Yeah.
He never wrote anything. He just stayed in the Land of Cakes all day, got completely bladdered, picked up a big salary for doing nothing, and occasionally, when they wanted a colour piece written at, some terrible disaster like a plane crash in Yorkshire or something, they'd find a car and put Jerry in it and send him over there. He could never drive because he was always too bladderated. And his famous claim was always he'd written the piece before he got there. He was that good, you know what I mean?
Right.
And then he'd turn around and come back to the Land of Cakes. The Land of Cakes used to rent out rooms above the bar for £1 a night to bladderated Daily Express journalists.
Really?
£1 a night.
Shocking.
Bed and breakfast.
Absolutely horrendous. What a terrible way to live your life.
Across the UK, online and on DAB.
The best of the two mics.
On Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
Well, I'll tell you what, I've just picked up a book on James Brown. People send me these books all the time,
That's how you say, yeah.
And,
I don't know where you put them all.
Eh?
I don't know where you put them all.
No, this is...
You have to get some more bookcases in.
Yeah, we'll have to. But, I mean, it's absolutely fantastic, I'm telling you. It describes James Brown as, in real life, James Brown was understood all too well as a monster of greed and vanity, a bully, a tax dodger on an industrial scale, a wife-beater and an all-round maniac.
Yes.
In 1987,
Probably fair.
In 1987, high on angel dust, he burst into an insurance seminar adjoining his office, brandishing a gun. A police chase ensued.
Yeah, that was the chase. I remember covering that.
Yeah, do you?
Because he had to jail in the end. They caught him, didn't
Yeah,
they?
they caught him. Yeah. A police chase ensued. He was then convicted of carrying a deadly weapon at a public gathering, attempting to flee a police officer, driving under the influence of drugs, and he was sent to prison. He was also arrested a number of times for domestic violence, including hitting his third wife with a lead pipe he wrenched from underneath the sink.
Shocking.
And shooting at her during an argument.
Shooting at her?
Yes. The police were once summoned to his house after an electrician complained that Brown had charged at him with a steak knife. In 2004, when he was in his 70s, he pleaded guilty to a charge of domestic violence against his fourth wife.
Yeah.
OK?
Yeah.
Though he claimed to be a man of the people...
he was off his face most of the time, wasn't he?
He was off his face, yeah. He was like me, he claimed to be a man of the people,
Yeah,
right?
and off his face.
Yeah. But though he claimed to be a man of the people, he would always travel in a private jet,
right,
while his band were forced to make do with a second-hand bus. I mean,
Although
you know,
I once saw him, the
Yeah.
only time I ever saw him in my travels there was in is it McLaren Airport, whatever it's called, Las Vegas Airport.
Yeah.
And I was waiting for a plane back to wherever. And he was just sitting on one of the chairs. He
Right.
wasn't in a lounge, he was just sitting there.
Right.
And one of his wives, I think it was his maybe fourth wife or third wife, who was very statuesque.
Yeah.
And he was wearing the biggest pair of sunglasses I'd ever seen anyone wear.
Right.
They were literally, one of the lenses was almost the size of my head.
Well, to hide his, face.
Well, he just had a massive pair of sunglasses.
Right, OK.
And he was just sitting there looking very sort of serene and very regal.
Yeah.
And nobody was going anywhere near him.
No, because it was like a menace, an air of menace
it
about
was
it.
like you wouldn't want to.
Yeah, anyway, he flew in the private jet. His band were forced to be on the second-hand bus. He always employed spies on the buses to report anybody who was rude about him, who would then be instantly sacked, if not given the treatment by some of his bodyguards. He fined members of his band for having scuffed shoes or improperly tied bow ties, and he was equally ready to fire them for asking for the money that he owed them. In a particularly creepy manoeuvre, he would encourage his musicians to buy big expensive houses and cars and then fire them, and then wait until they were crippled by debt before offering to hire them back at half the original salary.
How bizarre.
I mean, this guy is mad.
Yeah.
He also strenuously avoided paying tax.
Sounds like a control freak.
He is, yeah. Collecting any payments for concerts in suitcases. Then he would hide the money here, there and everywhere, even burying it in fields around his house.
Right.
In 1984, as a result of this process having gone on for several years, he was found to owe the Internal Revenue Service $15 million. That was just the tax. So if tax is 25%...
It wasn't even that high there.
So that was $60 million he did. Or whatever. So he hid away $15
That's a lot of cash, isn't it?
Yeah. They eventually managed to claw some of it back by seizing his private jet, 3 radio stations he owned, and 30 cars.
Blimey.
One of his principal arguments against paying tax, which he told a judge in court, was that President Nixon had once told him he was a national treasure. Yeah. He therefore decided he was immune to national tax. Against all the evidence detailed in reputable journals such as the New York Times and well over a dozen previous biographies written on him, this is the one I'm reading now, the image of him comes out, the image of him overall is that he was very bad news. James was always neat, always clean, always polite, says his first wife, Velma, and blamed all Brown's misdemeanours on his fear of white men. The real James Brown, he argues, was sensitive, kind, loyal, proud, troubled. All in all, he was the most cliched of things and massive contradictions. I mean, it's an amazing book, honestly. Yeah. And it goes on and on about what he used to do.
I knew that he was often in trouble with the law. I didn't realise that the thing that shocks me the most about that story is what he used to do to the guys in his band.
Yeah, that's
the fact that he would just kind of have them on sort of slave wages.
That's right.
And he would manufacture that.
That's right. Far from being a man of the people, he was once accompanied to a welfare shelter where he was supposed to be showing people his compassion for those less fortunate himself. But as he walked in to the New York City building, he shouted to the inmates, "You all ought to be ashamed of yourselves. You ought to be working instead of being lazy bums lounging around here." So,
I mean, this tweet from Paul proves to be even more prosaic than we thought. James Brown, just like Porky Parry, then.
What? That's very harsh.
Because he doesn't like bums, right? He pretends to be a man of the people when he's not.
Yeah.
Doesn't particularly like, paying government taxes.
Disgraceful.
And treats everybody as if they're supposedly his own people.
Not at all. How rich must he have been to have hidden away $15 million in tax payments?
Well, it sounds like he didn't just hide that. He hid the total amount.
No, that's all.
He
Yeah,
didn't put the 60 million through the banking system.
Yeah,
He must have had it all in his garden.
exactly. Yeah,
How bizarre.
Isn't that weird? Yeah.
Do you think they're going to find any of your cash on the old
good way,
underneath the bird table?
Good way to manage your money.
Yeah, all right. Now, I spotted this thing, and I thought it was perfect for you, this way of... you're saying that we spoke about this last week, but I think that was a different study that you found, which is all about body language.
The body language and how police can tell now whether a man is lying when they're interviewing him. Yes.
And this is more about how you kind of spot a liar because of what they say, rather than what they actually do.
Right.
It says here, liars may split hairs, decline to answer, and change the subject or tone. Mm-hmm. Right?
So give me an example.
Well, for example, if I said to you, how old are you?
Yes.
What would your answer be?
Well, you're not asking me that, are you? No.
Well, I am.
No.
So you're declining to answer?
Yes.
Why?
Because I feel it's an intrusion of my privacy.
Do you?
Yes.
Well, even though you revealed it in Manchester?
What?
By accident. Do you not remember?
There were only 400 people in the room at the time.
And they were all forced to sign a document.
Exactly.
You may split hairs if I was to say to you, for example, I don't know, if I was to ask you a question about what you did today.
What did I do today?
What did you do today?
Why do you want to know?
Because it's of interest to our listeners.
Sorry, is this a policeman asking a suspect the question, or is it you asking me?
So you're changing the subject?
No.
Now?
No.
So that's another sign?
No, not at all.
Well,
no.
what did you do today? It's a
What did I do
straightforward question,
today?
yeah.
I looked after my affairs.
Your affairs?
Yes.
What does that mean?
I checked things out.
What things?
Things that I have to check out to make sure that my life runs,
now you're changing the tone.
No, my life runs efficiently along the railway lines of life.
Uh-huh. Would you say that's splitting hairs?
No, it's not splitting hairs at all. And by the way, it's a bit of, what's it got to do with you type territory.
I see. All right, so basically you've now fulfilled all three of the requisites of a liar. Splitting hairs, declining to answer, and changing the subject or tone. In fact, 4 things.
It's not lying to adopt an air of privacy. That is not lying.
Okay, well, what would you like me to ask you about that you can tell me the truth about then? Or sort of question, you'd like me to ask you a question you can answer?
Okay.
What would that be?
How much did I donate to charity today?
How much did you donate to charity today?
50 quid.
Which charity?
I donated it to a chap who contacted us, actually. He's a listener who is running the London Marathon.
Oh, yeah. That's this weekend.
That's this weekend.
They've already started putting the fences down to make a road.
That's right, yeah. And, wanted some help in... He's trying to raise £1,500, so I sent him a cheque for 50 quid.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Very nice.
Okay.
Very nice.
See, I'm not being, I'm not splitting hairs about that, am I?
No, that's good, because what it says here is you need to get a baseline, right? A sense of what people look and talk like when their guard is down and they're telling the truth.
You can ask me what I did this afternoon if you want.
What did you do this afternoon?
I constructed my new bird table in my... What's your problem?
Where did you get that from?
My housekeeper bought it for me.
She bought it for you?
Yes.
Where? Was it come in kit form?
Yeah, she bought it.
Kit form bird table?
Yeah, at B&Q.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Why did she buy it there?
Because that's where she was getting my new plants.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, well, shall we not have a picture of this new bird table then?
Well, it's a bird table. It's a black one.
What's it made of?
Metal.
Metal.
And it's got a little metal bird on the top to attract other birds. Do you know what I mean?
Well, because birds really like the look of a black metal bird.
Well, yeah, why not?
The black bird. What is it, the Maltese falcon you're reenacting?
No. It's,
falcon ridiculous.
No. And then the little birds sit on the edge of it, right? And they dip their beaks into the water.
A picture.
Why?
We need to see a picture.
Well, I don't mind taking a picture, but I think that one bird table is probably the same as many others.
Well, this one sounds like a special one. How long did it take you to put together?
Not long.
Not long?
No.
How much did it cost?
£37.50.
How much?
£37.50.
That's expensive.
Yeah, well,
for a bird
it's
table.
a good bird table.
Did you buy any bird food?
Yes.
What sort?
They look like tennis balls. I've never seen bird food like it before. I thought you got bird food was like rice and stuff. You know what I mean? Well, not rice, but it looked like the stuff that birds peck at. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like almost like sort of cat litter type stuff. You know what I mean?
I see.
But it isn't. It comes now in literally.
I've seen those balls.
Yeah, like balls. You've seen those, have you?
Yeah.
Okay. So I've put a few of those up in the garden.
What time did you get to work tonight?
What time did I get in work?
Yeah. What time did you get here tonight?
Here?
Yes.
to the TalkSport Tower complex.
Yeah, that's splitting hairs.
No.
See, now you've changed your tone again.
No.
You're telling the truth about the bird table and the bird food.
I would say, let me see, that would have been...
You get to the nearest 5 minutes.
11:25.
11:25.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It says here on your Twitter, 22:56, which is 4 minutes to 11, arriving shortly at TalkSport Towers.
Yes.
So that was half an hour early. Half an hour earlier than you say you got here.
No, that was after I'd parked the car, got my stuff out the car,
Yeah.
booted up my computer.
Where'd you park your car at Uxbridge?
No. Just along the road a bit, you know. But I had things to do before I got into the main foyer of the building.
I see.
Okay?
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. I think
Happy
we've
with that?
established that you're a liar.
No,
Liars split hairs,
no.
decline to answer and change the subject or
No,
tone.
no.
It's very straightforward.
I don't do any of that. I don't do any of that.
And why do you not, despite the many requests from the listeners,
Yes.
take a picture of yourself by the clock when you get in?
Well, because I think that's self-serving, to be honest.
Yeah.
Do I have to really prove how many hours I work at this show on a
Well, no, you just
nightly
have to
basis?
prove that when you send out a thing saying just arriving at TalkSport, that
Yes.
you actually are.
Yeah,
Because they don't
yeah.
believe you.
Well, I mean, it's a bit irrelevant. We don't come on air till 1 o'clock. As long as I'm here behind the microphone, fully boned up on the subjects we're going to discuss for the next 3 hours, I don't think it's a problem. I tell you what I'm going to talk to you about.
It's troubling, though, isn't it?
No, it's not troubling.
It is.
No, it's not troubling.
Why are you
Listen.
changing the subject?
Well, I'm changing the subject because this is very important. It's important to the lifestyle that we lead and those of millions of our listeners, okay?
Okay.
This is great. They've done a new report which has clarified now that middle-aged Britons are risking their health by, they've got this new expression, preloading with vast quantities of alcohol at home.
Preloading?
Yeah, before a night out. Many also round off the evening with a few nightcaps after they get back.
Yeah, but the difference between what you might regard as normal middle-aged people and us is that we don't go out at night.
No.
I mean, if we do go out drinking, it's usually during the day
Yeah.
when we're not working.
But
we can't. We haven't got the luxury of being able to go out drinking at night.
Weekends we can.
At the weekend, no, I don't.
No, I
Because
don't.
I'm at home with the kids.
No, I agree.
If I drink, I'll drink it at home.
But I mean, the thing is, they've got the perspective of this all wrong. Listen to this now. This is from this official research document done by some, quango body, probably paid for out of the public Sheffield University.
Sheffield University.
Yeah.
Sheffield Hallam.
No, just says Sheffield University, actually. I went there for an interview, actually, to do law. Now then.
What?
Yeah, law.
What, Sheffield Hallam?
No, Sheffield. Sheffield Hallam was a polytechnic in those days. Right, now then.
So you went to Sheffield University?
Yes.
To do an interview?
Yeah, to interview.
To study what?
Law.
What? Law what?
Law. It's a subject people study at
law. What, you mean like a
university.
degree in law?
Yes, that's right.
Right.
Yeah. Is that difficult to understand?
Well, no, but usually it's called an LLB, isn't it?
You can either get a BA Law or a double LB.
Yeah.
It was a double LB course. I went to Warwick University for the same thing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But you didn't go to either of those places, then?
No, I decided in the end to...
and you never studied law?
To study property, and that was successful. Now then,
You left before the course was over, didn't you?
Like you did. Let me just finish this. They say here it means adults are routinely downing, get this, Mike, 14 units of alcohol in one session. That's a bottle and a half of wine in an evening.
You told me a bottle of wine was, 6 or 7 units, is that right?
No.
Didn't you?
Six.
Is it 6?
Yeah, in an evening by drinking in multiple locations, a study found.
Yeah.
The maximum limit for the entire week, as set out in NIH guidelines, should be 14 units. 14 units.
14 units a day?
No, a week.
A week?
A week.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So that's 2 bottles a week?
Hey?
That's 2 bottles a week?
It's 2 bottles a week. But listen, funny enough...
I just had 12 bottles delivered, and I would estimate that after...
That's 1 week.
No, it would last me... No, I mean, because I generally don't drink during the week very much, right?
Yeah.
For several days. And then what will happen is we'll have a bit of a drinking session on Friday, you and I. Saturday and Sunday, I'll probably drink maybe 3 bottles of the 12 that have come.
Right, okay.
Maybe 4.
Right.
So that's already twice as much as, or 3 times as much as we're supposed to drink.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, these are ridiculous. Let me tell you this, because I've already got a research document here, right, which I found
the time, by the way.
earlier in the week. Don't worry. If you like a drink but are worried about your health, move to Chile. Right?
There's some good red wine in Chile.
Yeah, some great red wine in Chile. The UK government recommends 112 units. I don't know what this is. This is a year or a week or something.
A year?
Could be. Anyway, it recommends 112, whatever that is, right?
112 what?
Well, I'm trying to find out.
You don't know, do you?
Countries have no clear definition of a drink. Tell me about... Oh, here we go. Britain issued fresh guidelines in January telling people not to drink more than 14 units a week, about a bottle and a half of wine, OK?
Right.
So...
Well, it sounds more like 2 bottles, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does to me.
Well, if a bottle and a half of wine is 14 units, then surely one bottle must be round about 9.5.
Yeah, or it says all 5 pints of beer. But anyway, the figures they've got here, for some unknown reason... it's the guidelines of units of pure ethanol. That's pure alcohol, OK?
Yeah.
In a year.
Right.
In a year.
Well, what's the figure?
112.
112 what?
Well, units of pure ethanol. But anyway, look, the point of the story is it's all comparative.
It doesn't make any nonsense.
No,
It doesn't make any sense at all.
They say that's for the UK, 112. The Polish government are the best.
Yeah.
They say, no, drink 280. Which is more than double.
And make it in the back of the shed.
Yeah, that's right. Vietnam, 280. France, 210. Canada, 204.
Right.
UK, 112.
Well, they're only guidelines, aren't they?
Hey?
They're only guidelines.
And as for units in the UK,
You've seen the time.
14. In Chile, 58. That's brilliant. I'm moving to Chile.
58 a week.
Or Poland. No, a week, yeah.
I'm confused with all those numbers.
Yeah, 58 a week.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't drink. We have to rush through.
Okay.
So if you can be as brief but as informative
Right.
as possible
Okay.
with each of your answers,
Okay.
That would be brilliant.
Yes.
We're going to kick off with a question that came in on Twitter from Henry,
Okay.
who says, I've just moved into a new house.
Yeah.
Should I introduce myself to the neighbours or save myself for rat-like cunning later?
I wouldn't bother with your neighbours. Neighbours are a pain in the butt because the problem is that once you introduce yourself to the neighbours then think, I've made a connection here, and almost inevitably you'll have something that they will want. And I'm not talking about a cup of sugar here. I'm talking about company. I'm talking about, the need to be friendly. I'm talking about, most human beings want to sort of sidle up to other human beings because they're frightened of being in the world on their own. I would just give the neighbours a bum steer. Keep yourself to yourself. Ignore the neighbours. If they speak to you, be polite. Otherwise, do not try and engender any social relationship with your neighbours. It will end up in disaster. You'll fall out with them.
Colin says this on Facebook. My wisdom tooth is playing up again. Do I go to the dentist and get put on anti-bladderation tablets or grit my teeth and keep getting bladderated, especially as it's now barbecue weather?
No, go and get them taken out. The problem is you've got to face up to life's problems. You can't compromise life's problems. If you do that, the problem gets worse. The pain gets more intense. The sense of loss, the sense of losing direction, the sense of something else controlling your life except yourself has gone. You must take the initiative. And if you've got a pain in your wisdom tooth, you go to your dentist, you say, how do I stop the pain? If he says there's a course of tablets, you say, give them to me. If he says I've got to extract them, then get them extracted.
Thank you very much indeed. Here's one from Becky in New Zealand. Mike, do you think man has a responsibility to save endangered species, or should we let them go extinct?
It depends on what the endangered species is. If it's a white rhino running around Africa, I don't care, because I don't go to Africa very often, and I certainly don't go sightseeing white rhinos, so it doesn't really affect my life. Again, if it's some sort of rare fish that only exists in the Indian Ocean, I don't care if it becomes extinct. However, if it was a Labrador dog, I'd fight tooth and nail to keep the Labrador dog because I love Labrador dogs.
Well,
they're great.
Extinct, are they?
Well, we hope they're not going to become extinct. But you take my point. If it's a useful animal and a lovable animal, we must fight to save it. Otherwise, I don't care.
Wayne says this. Porky, in today's modern society, can we live a sin-free life with temptation around every corner?
Well, it depends what your definition of sin is. If sin is helping another human being feel good by sharing emotions with them, by sharing actions with them, both mentally and physically, I see no problem or no issue in not indulging yourself in the pleasures of the mind and the flesh in order to improve somebody else's life.
OK. Here's one from somebody calling himself Have You Seen the Time on Twitter.
Right.
He says, if you were stuck on an island and could only have one person there, who would it be?
The one person I would have with me, could that person be dead or alive?
I don't know.
The one person I would have with
Why are
me...
you shouting, by the way?
Well, sorry, I've got to get my point over.
Right.
The one person I would have with me on a... What's it? A desert island?
A desert island.
Would be a member of my family, because at the end of the day...
Oh, yeah, you see, but if you only had one, you might cause conflict with the others.
Well, I'm sorry, you'd have to nominate somebody. I'd have a member of my family with me. They're the only people in the world you can really trust. The only people in the world you can trust are members of your own close family, close members, siblings, maybe your parents, maybe your children, I don't know. But they're the only people you can trust. At the end of the day, when you're critically ill, lying in a bed in hospital, the only people who are going to be sitting around your bedside are going to be your family. At times of stress and need, only your family will help you out. All other people in life will just rip you off. In the end, you fall out with all your friends. Believe me, it's happened to me.
Yeah, you haven't got any friends. Richard says this, Porky, what advice have you got for Lewis Hamilton after his poor start to the season? He is also the less successful in a bickering partnership.
Yeah, if I was Lewis Hamilton now, I'd either start taking Formula 1 motor racing seriously again or I'd give up. The point is, he's a 3-time world champion, so he's got nothing more to prove. It seems to me that his attitude after winning it for a second time in succession, back-to-backs, 3 races from the end, he simply gave up and decided that, he'd done enough and he had it in the bag. Similarly, at the start of this season, very, very poor start to the season. I think he's completely lost it now, and I don't think he'll get it back. I would do what Michael Schumacher didn't do and retire with dignity and grace whilst you've got a great record.
Here's one from Jay on Twitter. It says, I'm running the London Marathon on Sunday. What should my pre-race meal be?
Your pre-race meal should be pasta, because pasta gives you latent energy to burn out as the race goes on. You have to understand there is latent and kinetic energy. It's a physical force within the body. You need the latent to spill out over the next 5 or 6 hours that you're going to be running that marathon. That will get you round. You won't hit the wall, as many do, if you followed my advice.
Here's one from Brad, who says, I'm taking my girlfriend to London soon. Can Porky suggest places I can take her for the best chance of Rogerisation?
Well, to be
I'm
honest...
not sure what he means, though.
No, exactly. The only reason you're taking your girlfriend to London for Rogerisation, I wouldn't bother, mate, because, it's just as cheap to get a hotel wherever you are as to get it in London. However, if you want to be romantic, which is a different thing altogether, I should take a boat up and down the River Thames. There's some very, very nice boats now, got them down the Thames. They've got a bar on board, and you can take the boat to Canary Wharf. You can get off at the top there, and there's a beautiful Italian restaurant just on the walkway down to the pier, where you will have a sparkling time. But pure Rogerisation, physical indulgence in sex in London is not the reason to come to the capital.
I think you may be right about that. John says this on Facebook. Advice, please. I can't find trousers that fit my waist in the right length, so I have taken to wearing long trousers that come down over my heels. Has there been anything invented to help shorten trousers? Alternatively, should I just admit I have a body like Fred Flintstone and start wearing a stretchy tracksuit?
Well, what a hopeless individual this person is. I have the same problem because I have a well-formed body, but it's not always the same measurements as clothes they sell in places like Marks and Spencer, where I buy my clothes.
Right.
Every time I've bought a
different shop.
Every time I've bought a pair of trousers in my life, I've had to have them shortened.
Yeah.
And the first thing I do is I take them home and I wash them, and that means that the any shrinkage factor is then looked after, right?
Well, not from a suit, surely.
Oh, no, not from a suit, you idiot. I get the suits done in the shop where I buy them and go back and collect them 2 days later.
Okay.
If, however, I'm buying my chinos at Marks and Spencer's, I take them home, I get them washed by my housekeeper, and she then takes them down to the local dry cleaners where they do clothes adjustments, and I have
them on in a bath like we used to do with jeans.
No, that's to mould them around your legs. And I have them shortened to the appropriate length. Yeah. Anybody can do that. It's a problem very simply solved, you oaf.
Thank you very much. Jonathan says, when Porky says he's a man of the people, what people is he actually talking about? The average honest working man or the devious millionaire playboys of this world?
Well, I believe in trickle-down economics. So I believe that if the people at the top who've got load of money work hard, they will have to employ people to do things for them that wouldn't otherwise get done. So, for instance, unless you have a wealth-creating elite in a country, you can't look after the needs of those people who, through no fault of their own, were not able to acquire the sort of wealth you need to run an estate that needs gardeners, that needs people to clean the cars, that needs people to maintain the roof and wash the windows and do the gardening. All that is because we have trickle-down economics.
Here's one from Dave on Twitter. What were your memories of the O.J. Simpson trial, particularly when the verdict came in?
I was in a hotel in Newcastle. I'd been attending a meeting there. I was the executive editor of the Press Association, and I remember the flickering smile on OJ's face as the first verdict of not guilty came in.
So you weren't working then?
Well, I wasn't actually working in a newsroom, no, on that day. We didn't know when the jury was coming back. They'd been out a couple of days. So it was a very, very historic moment, and one that I will not forget.
Matthew says this on Facebook. If Everton win the Cup, will Porky say right now, live on air, he will sign up for either Strictly or I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, especially after his abysmal Bournemouth Pier cop-out?
Well, I wanted to jump off Bournemouth beer. Wasn't allowed to by the authorities in Bournemouth. If I was invited into one of those, what are they called?
One of those what shows, those sort of
reality
shows.
Reality shows, something like that. I would certainly consider it, and I would donate a percentage of the fee, depending on what it was, to... What are you laughing at?
Depending on what it was?
Yeah, to...
Why would the percentage differ?
Well, no. Well, it depends how big the fee was.
That's what I mean.
And
why would it be any different?
Well, because if I was given...
Either you did give 10% away or you don't.
Well, if it was fee was £100,000, I'd be happy to give 10% away.
Right.
If the fee was £20,000... I might think again.
Why wouldn't you give 10% of 20 grand away?
Because it's only 20 grand.
Shocking. How about this one from Ian? How's the bladderation in moderation going?
Bladderation and moderation going very well indeed. I've not now had an alcoholic drink since 4 o'clock last Saturday afternoon after I'd finished lunch, and I intend that to go right the way through until I have a liaison involving bladderatory circumstances at Friday lunchtime this week.
Okay, now final question, and this is from I'm not sure how you pronounce his name, but it's a Gaelic spelling. Helmin maybe. He says, as a Scot exiled in Iceland, the girlfriend and I are looking for a nice October sun holiday. As a well-travelled man, Porkmeister, where would you recommend we go? The Seychelles, Chile, South Africa, California, Malta, or Chester? I don't know why he's added Chester in at the end. Oh, actually, Kevin, sorry.
Yeah, I would actually go to Chester myself because it's a beautiful city and I'm not all that keen on sunshine. However, if you want sunshine, go to the Seychelles. Seychelles is a marvellous archipelago. Yeah, that's right, of loads of little islands, including Bird Island, where there are 5 million sooty terns, OK?
What?
There are 5 million sooty terns on Bird Island.
Are they looked after by the Royal Society for the Prevention of Birds?
No, they're looked after by the authorities in the Seychelles itself. However, you do get bored stiff on the Seychelles because there's nothing to do except look at the sooty terns and, get a boat in between all these islands. The amazing thing about the Seychelles is I walked from one island to another, which is 2 miles away, through the sea, and the sea never got deeper than 4 feet.
Yeah. That's one of the great things. And
It's
you can have a room that's literally just on the water, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Which would be very nice indeed. Roy says, sounds like James Brown should have been Porky's mentor. 2 peas in a pod, both men of the people.
Hey, that's very harsh.
And Thomas says, he sounds like a mellow guy, James Brown. # crackpot. # good teeth.
Yeah.
He did have very good teeth.
Yeah, he did, yeah. Well, he had them all redone, didn't he? Because he got himself into fights all the time, that sort of stuff,
And then Rob says this, the best way to keep cats off Porky's postage stamp-sized penthouse patio, buy a bird table. Genius.
Yeah.
# plank.
Well, I think that's... I know it's quite... Oh, no, the cats don't...
Well, the cats will come for the birds.
No.
Of course they will.
Oh, no, I've put spiked fences right along the walls everywhere. And the fences, they don't get in anywhere. Now, I haven't seen a cat...
There's no time.
I haven't seen a cat for ages.
It's time for the news at 2 o'clock. Oh, hang on. No, it's not. The news is not
Can you
now.
tell the time?
Yeah, I can tell the time.
Can you?
Yeah.
So how come you're trying to pull the show, a good 58 seconds before we have to?
I was misinformed.
No, you weren't misinformed.
Yeah, I was.
No, you weren't misinformed.
I was told I would have about 30 seconds when we came back.
Do you know what that is?
What
That's
is it?
flashback bladderation, that is.
No, it isn't, no.
Yes, it is.
No,
People get it all the time. People who indulge in...
It's being misinformed.
6 or 7
by
bottles
the incompetence
overnight
behind the glass.
on a Saturday, and then they cut down a bit on Monday and Tuesday. You get a flashback Tuesday night, which causes your bladderated mind to misread the clock.
Well, when I said there's
That's
no
what it
time,
is.
also when I said to you there's no time, why did you stop talking?
Because I was looking at your face instead of looking at the clock, and your fat face
Well, why don't you
told
look
me
at
the
clock?
wrong message.
Why are you getting so worked
Your
up?
fat face was like a sundial that was suddenly gone wrong. A bent sundial. Do you think Pochettino's part of the plot for Jose Mourinho not getting the job at Manchester United?
Why?
Well, I
because
think
he wants the job, you mean?
I think United have got their eyes on him.
Now we definitely haven't got any time.
Okay.
It is now definitely time for the news.
You sure?
This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mics. There will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on. Got another message here from Les in Manchester about the old days of the drinking culture.
Oh, yes.
He says, I always thought that I'd seen Mr. Parry before. And by the way, tell him the Crown and Kettle was not next door to the Land of Cakes. It was on the same side as the Express on the corner of Great Ancoat Street and Oldham Road, which was opposite Yates Wine Lodge.
Excuse
both
me.
of which have gone now.
I said it was in the same building as the Express. I said
okay.
it was an extension of the Black Lubianca. If you go into the steps of the Black Lubianca and go up there, The black glass was above you and to your right, and to your left was the Crown and Kettle.
Yeah, okay, I don't doubt you.
Yeah.
And the Express known as the Glass. Why didn't we go there, by the way, when we were in Manchester? We should have gone there when we were in Manchester.
What, Great Ancoats Street?
Well, we should have gone and had a look, shouldn't we?
How
far were we away from there then? When we were
you're
staying
not
at
far
the,
from
Palace?
anywhere. You're not far from anywhere in Manchester.
Well, we were on
It's not
Oxford
big.
Road, weren't we?
Yeah, we're on Oxford Road. We'd have to go up Oldham Street because it's on the north side of the city, out towards Saddleworth Moor, actually.
Oh, okay.
And
So,
Rochdale and Oldham Road.
Because I feel as though I've been now to the centre of Manchester, but I don't feel as if I got my sort of bearings.
Yeah.
Particularly, I would have liked to have been taken to the Express building.
Yeah.
But you failed to do that.
Yeah, I
He
did,
then says the Express, known as the Glass House, has now been converted into yuppie flats. I would have thought that when he was in Manchester last week, he might have gone and had a nostalgic look at his old haunt. And if he had, he could have bought a luxury flat in the Glass House.
Well,
and although I didn't work in the Express, I used to work in the Daily Mail, Manchester Evening News in Deansgate.
Yeah, Deansgate. That was got blown up by the IRA, but it was a very famous location. And the press club was in Deansgate as well, not very far away from the Manchester Evening News and Guardian building. Last time I went to see the Express Black Lubianca, because it's exactly the same as the building in Fleet Street, by the way, built by the same architect under Lord Beaverbrook's ownership. Yeah. It still had its presses. The press floor was on the ground floor, Mike, and you could stand outside and watch the Daily Express being printed.
That was great.
It was brilliant. And last time I went there, so it must have been a few years ago now. Although I've been to Manchester a few times for football matches. Last time I actually went to Great Ancoats Street. The building was occupied by the Sport newspaper group.
Oh, yeah.
And they published their
Which used to be owned by David Sullivan.
That's right, absolutely, yeah.
No more.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Now, here's one from Derek in Pencoed. He hasn't let us know yet whether he's going to be attending our show in the Tram Shed in Cardiff on the 7th of May.
OK.
But he says this, with Porky always claiming he is far more intelligent than everybody else, in my opinion, he is suffering from delusions of Napoleonic grandeur.
No, not at all. Not at all. Do you know that the man who invented Weetabix has died, sadly?
Really?
Yeah.
Died sadly?
Well, I mean, sadly he's died. His name was Sir Richard George.
Why do people say that?
Well, what do you mean?
Because it's another one of these sanctimonious, meaningless phrases.
Yes, I agree.
Everybody always says sadly died.
Yeah, I mean, everybody dies, don't they? That's the point.
Well, they do. And funnily enough, you should say that. This is another thing I wanted to bring to your attention.
Oh, yes.
You know how we've, for the first 3 months of the year, been thinking to ourselves, blimey, somebody else that we've been with all our lives, celebrity-wise, is dead.
Yes.
It turns out that twice as many celebrities have died in the start of this year, the first quarter, than they did last year.
Well, you've only got to sort of list them on one hand, David Bowie. Two hands. David Bowie.
Bowie.
Ronnie Corbett.
Yeah.
The great actor who was Sheriff of Nottingham in...
Alan Rickman.
Alan Rickman, yeah, that's
Terry
three.
Wogan.
Terry Wogan, I've forgotten about him.
George Martin.
George Martin.
Paul Daniels. I mean,
yeah, it is amazing, isn't it?
But apparently somebody's actually done a study, and a number of obituaries that have been broadcast by the BBC have proven to be twice the number that they did the same time last year.
I know, it's amazing, isn't it? It's amazing.
But, I mean, it's not particularly amazing, because actually the reason is, and they give this reason in the study, the reason it's happening is because people who became famous in the 60s are now reaching a certain age, and they're all now kind of reaching the end of their lives.
Well, it's talking about, celebrities and stars and all that. John Whittingdale, our old friend, the culture secretary,
or Casanova, as he's now known.
Casanova has had to admit that
somebody else come out of the woodwork.
He forgot to enter into the Commons Book of Privileges that he accepted hospitality at a lap dancing club. and as
this guy's amazing.
Yeah.
Where does he find the time to do any work?
The hospitality was organised by the Lap Dancing Association.
Quite right.
In 2008, at the time of planned government crackdown.
The Lap Dancing Association?
Yeah, I didn't know it was a lap dancing association. But of course, you're always accusing me of having gone into a lap dancing club to watch a football match in Soho. I did not.
Yes, you did.
I did not. I will defend myself and my honour to the end of my day.
You did indeed enter a lap dancing establishment under the auspices of watching a football match.
The only place in Soho that had a screen that was what was showing the game that night was in the foyer, the entranceway to a lap dancing club. I didn't actually go into the club. I did not witness any young ladies spinning around on poles, scantily dressed. Of that I can assure you.
Yeah, but you did watch the entire game in there, didn't you?
Well, of course I did. I wanted to watch the game.
While they were all tottering around
when we were talking about wine earlier, by the way, I meant to tell you that according to one of my wine journals, Have I told you this before?
I don't know, because I don't know what you're going to say.
Well, French Bordeaux is not just going out of fashion, it might go out of production.
What?
The demand for it is...
Rubbish.
honestly,
That can't be true.
growers of
I'm very
Bordeaux...
I'm very partial to a Bordeaux white.
While the connoisseurs of southwest France... Bordeaux's red.
No, but you can get Bordeaux white as well.
I'm talking about Bordeaux red. The connoisseurs of southwest France have had their noses buried deep in the glass as a new generation of drinkers has moved on.
Well, I must say, and when it comes to red wine, I very, very rarely buy any French wine.
Years of falling sales and rising prices, the latest vintage had been earmarked as make or break for the region, and if the critics are to be believed, the signs are not good. Chateau owners are desperately over-promoting this year's offering as the birth of a great vintage. It seems that the wine has left a bitter taste on the palate of wine experts.
Well, do you know what I find with French red wine? And I know that there will be those who are very, very much more knowledgeable about wine than I am who will say, of course there are some great French reds, don't be so ridiculous.
Yes.
But the great French reds tend to be much more expensive because your palate gets trained to drink things like I've just ordered a case of Malbec, which is from Argentina.
Yeah.
And it's very kind of rich and
I like Chilean red.
Fruity. Chilean is similarly rich.
But if I had to choose...
And Australian red is quite a rich wine.
But if I had to choose a good red, it would always be a French one. It would always be Fleury.
Like what?
Fleury.
But Fleury's
Bone.
But Fleury's kind of watery, though.
Chateauneuf du Pape. Yeah, I like that. I like the Beaujolais family. I like the Beaujolais family. I really do.
Yeah, but that's because you know nothing about wine. Basically,
I know how to taste wine, and I know what
how
I like.
To drink it by the gallon.
I know what I like.
Well, if you answer the questions on the personal listography today on the New Day newspaper.
Yeah, what are your favourite 3 drinks?
Well, list your 3 favourite drinks.
Yeah.
What would they be?
Well, mine
Pinot Grigio.
Pinot Grigio.
Yeah.
Pinot Grigio.
What about the third one?
Pinot Grigio.
All 3.
Yeah.
A plank. Now, how about this from Steve? We were
Yes.
talking about what we should do the quiz on. Steve says, "Have you had a quiz on the Queen yet? As it's her 90th birthday."
That's a brilliant idea.
I don't think we've done the Queen.
No, I haven't done the Queen. Her Majesty the Queen, and I think we should pay tribute.
Her birthday's on Thursday, I think, as well, isn't it?
It is, and I am a bit of an expert on royalty and the monarchy in this country. And remember that I've spent almost a lifetime, following a lot of the royal family around. I say that's a good idea.
You've spent a lifetime following them around?
Well, of course you have.
Are they aware of that?
Well, we all did as reporters. How many royal jobs did you do?
I did quite a lot.
Exactly, it's exactly what I'm saying.
I did Charles and Di coming to Washington for the first time to see Ronnie and Nancy in the White House.
I chased Diana around the Caribbean on a yacht when she was, playing away from home, so to speak.
What period of of her life was that then? After she got separated?
No, it was
before the Panorama programme then. Must have been before the Panorama programme.
Yeah, it was before Panorama programme, but she was out there on her own. Charles wasn't with her. You know what I mean?
Was she on Khashoggi's yacht?
Yes, she was there with girlfriends.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you ever see her anywhere?
No.
In
fact, we never even saw the yacht. Spent 10 days trying to find it.
I spent an entire weekend in New Orleans, chasing Princess Michael of Kent.
Yes,
and I never found her.
No, exactly. I know it happens all the time.
It was an amazing weekend, though.
I bet it was.
The photographer I was with ended up finding himself in bed with the daughter of the woman called Sherry. Do you remember Sherry Lewis, who used to do lamb chop?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Yeah, her daughter.
Yeah. Was that Derek Hudson?
No, it wasn't Derek Hudson. No, it was a guy from LA.
Oh, I see,
His name, I forget. He came from LA, I came from New York.
Oh, I see. It wasn't a very famous LA photographer, was it?
I don't think you'd know this guy.
The celebrity. Do you know his name?
Oh, you mean Phil Ramey?
Phil Ramey,
no.
yeah.
No, it wasn't him, no.
No, right, okay.
No, it was another guy.
Now, listen, I have some bad news for you. Today is a particularly nasty, evil and sad anniversary.
Is it?
Adolf Hitler was born in 1889.
Right. Did you get an alert on that as well?
Well, I didn't get an alert on it, but it comes up in my historical
I see.
Journal.
Well, I don't particularly want to talk about that.
No, I don't
I couldn't care less. I had a very good day yesterday, though, because finally my car, which I knew has been plagued by problems with the old windscreen washers, was fixed. But do you know what was wrong with it?
No.
And this is where it gets weird.
Well, you told me it was a bust fuse.
No, it wasn't a bust fuse. No, the story goes that the windscreen washer sort of mechanism was initially fused.
Yes.
Because it was switched on during the frosty time.
Yes.
And that was what fused it. But when it was
What, you mean because it was asked to do too much work because it was stuck?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Not by me, I hasten to add.
No, exactly.
But by somebody not a million miles from me.
Yes.
So that was then fixed because I was first told you might have to get a new motor. The motor might be burnt out. Got a new motor. Then it was said to be the fuse. Then it didn't just spray the water fast enough onto the screen. It was just limp, Anyway, the guys today fixed it. So they took the whole system apart and they found little shards of plastic inside the sort of the piping system.
Yes.
And they don't know how they got there. Isn't that weird?
No.
Well, how would that be the case?
Well, it's obviously deterioration of the plastic inside the system.
Do you think?
Of course it is.
Well, I'm not sure if that's...
Right, well, let me
that's-
tell you
that's
this,
not what
then.
they said.
Let me tell you this, right? A few months ago,
Yeah.
when I was using my adapter shower in my bathroom...
What?
So it's not my main shower.
What's an adapter shower?
Well, it's when you luxuriate in a bath, and then when you've...
Oh, you mean a shower that attaches to the
Yeah,
pipes?
yeah.
You've still got one of them? Well, like from the 70s?
No,
With the two rubber things?
No, you idiot.
What then?
It's a separate fitting on the side wall with a shower attachment,
So
right?
it's like a handheld shower?
It's plumbed in behind the tiles and all
okay.
this kind of stuff, right?
Why is it called an adapter shower?
Well, I don't know. But anyway, it's for when you sink your head below the water and then come out again.
Yeah.
You don't want all the soap still in your hair,
Right.
so you use the shower.
Yeah.
Now,
It's a horrible vision I've got in my head now.
Why?
Of you sort of sitting in a bath, showering the top of your head.
no, luxuriating.
No,
mate,
it's
luxuriating.
a horrible vision.
Anyway, a few months ago, I started noticing black things coming out of my shower.
What?
Black things.
Black things?
Yeah.
What, you mean like sort of bits?
Bits.
Not creatures?
No, you idiot. No, bits. So I thought...
I don't know why you keep calling me an idiot for asking very personal...
No.
Quite
So-
sensible questions.
So anyway, I was able to get to the bottom of this very quickly. What I did was I unscrewed the head off the shower.
Right.
And I pulled out the inner plastic cord that
Okay.
goes inside the metal coily
Oh,
bit.
can
you
you
know
get
what I
that
mean?
out? Can you get that out? I didn't know you could.
Well, neither did I. So I took it out, and guess what happened?
What happened?
It was deteriorating.
Ah.
And that's where the black bits were coming
And
from.
it was that rubber then?
It was rubber.
Uh-huh.
So I went to B&Q myself.
Right.
Not my.
You didn't send your housekeeper?
No, I didn't. I went
Wow.
down and I got a new one and I put it in.
How do you know it was the right size?
Because I took the original with me.
Right.
Because you can screw that off at the taps. You see what I mean?
Right. Oh, so you
Yeah.
can take the whole thing off?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
right. Exactly.
Right.
And they cut the length for you.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
So
And did you have to thread it through?
yeah, but it just goes in. It just goes
Does
in.
it?
It's
But
like-
does it not get stuck halfway up?
No. Anyway.
Did you have to like flush it through so that all the bits of black stuff were out of it?
No, because the black stuff was inside the plastic tube.
Yeah.
You take the plastic tube out, they're all gone.
But where's the black stuff come from then?
It's the inside of the tube had deteriorated.
Ah,
the
okay.
rubber had started deteriorating, perishing.
Right.
Anyway, guess what?
What?
I was in my shower in my penthouse on the coast just this very Sunday gone.
Yeah.
And guess what?
Same thing happened.
Black bits coming into my face.
And would you say they were put in at the same time?
No. The penthouse is newer than the...
Well, why is it deteriorating
Oh, hang
quicker?
on. When did I have the bathroom put in last? Yeah, could be about the same time,
Yeah.
actually. Good thinking.
Which tells you that you've used the same
Yeah.
amount in each place.
Not really. It just means that the rubber inside the coil has perished over the
Right.
same time.
But the
Doesn't
thing
matter how
is-
much water's gone through it.
But the thing is, it didn't stop the water pressure from becoming...
No, not at all.
See, that's what I don't think is the case in the car.
Yeah.
Because the water pressure was being affected by these bits of plastic.
I see.
And they didn't say that it's corroding from the inside. So I don't know. But it's
Very-
fascinating. If anybody's got any ideas, by all means, let me know.
Interesting.
Yeah, we
Didn't
do-
get hit by a drone, did you?
No.
Because bits of black plastic would have gone into your engine if it had.
Well, no, this is the water tank.
Well, I'm talking about aeroplanes being hit by drones and their engines being knackered.
Rubbish. Absolute rubbish.
Across the UK, online and on DAB.
The best of the two mics.
On Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
What do you think of avocado?
What do I think of it?
Yeah.
I rather like
It's
avocado.
the new in food.
In food?
Yes, the new
How is
in
it the
food.
new in food? I mean, it's been the in food. It's a superfood.
No,
it's been a very, very in food for years.
There's been a tremendous surge in avocado sales, right?
Has there?
People are going after them with salad and all that. Do you know where I love avocado?
With prawns.
In Indian restaurants. That's always my starter in Indian restaurants.
Avocado and prawns?
Yes, always. Yeah, always have that as a
You
starter.
can't get avocado and prawns in Indian
Yes,
restaurant.
Yes, you can. The one I go to can.
What sort of Indian restaurant is that?
It's a brilliant
Do you also
Indian
have
restaurant.
Omelette and chips as a main course.
No, it's
No,
brilliant.
avocado and prawns I quite like, actually.
Yeah.
But I would expect that you would like it because it's perfect it's like Abigail's Party, isn't it? 1970s food.
Well, it is actually, yeah. But I mean, what's wrong with that? Most of the things that you...
Nothing particularly wrong with it.
Most of the things that you did and enjoyed in your 20s stick with you for the rest of your life.
I wouldn't say that.
Your music tastes, your taste in food, your
Taste in
habits,
women.
if you smoke in your 20s, you normally smoke for the rest of your life. Your taste in women, yeah.
I'm not sure if
you
that's
like
true.
blondes or brunettes and all
I'm
that.
not-
It is
I'm
true.
not sure.
It is true. It is true.
No,
I'm
I don't think
certain.
so.
But anyway, look, what I was going to say is,
Yeah.
it's got tremendous health benefits. Okay.
Yep.
It is tremendous health benefits.
Why has this come as any great surprise to you?
Well, because I thought avocados had
are-
disappeared.
No, they're a superfood.
What's that mean?
They're one of those foods that if you eat them, like blueberries, you get an awful lot more out of them than you would get out of most other foods of that type. Like as a vegetable, for example, if you wanted to eat an avocado a day, it's much, much better for your body than eating a carrot a day.
How do you eat an avocado? Do you have to peel it first?
No, you cut it in half. You take out the stone.
All right.
And then you can either scoop it out with a spoon, or you can add a little vinaigrette to it.
Now,
or you can make it into avocado prawns with some rosemary sauce.
You know, sometimes you can buy a pear, and it might be very hard and crunchy, and I don't like it. I throw it away.
Why don't you leave it to ripen?
Well, I can't. I haven't got the patience for that. But I only like soft pears. Now, when you buy an avocado and cut it in half, is there danger that it might be hard inside, or is it always soft?
Yeah. Well, depending on where you buy them, if you go to one of the more expensive supermarkets, they will sell you ripe and ready avocados.
Excellent, that's good.
And you can, if you're buying them, loose, you can give them a little squeeze. And if they're hard, you don't buy them.
Right. Okay.
If they give a little, then you do buy them.
Right. That's excellent. Now,
but you can also make guacamole with them, of course.
Yeah. Well, that's the stuff that Peter, what's his name, I thought was mushy peas.
No, that's an apocryphal story.
Well, I don't care.
It's not true.
That's what he...
no, but it's not a true story.
Anyway, let me tell you this. Global consumption of the avocado has become a 2 billion, that's 2 BB, billion, pound industry. It's doubled in size in the last decade. The trend has led to cafes and restaurants offering it in more dishes, such as smoothies and avocado cheesecake.
Right. I'm not a fan of that.
And a range of avocado and guacamole recipes.
Guacamole.
Yeah, have been written by top chefs.
Yeah.
Avocados are the fastest growing ingredient at cafe chain Pré à Manger.
What?
Which sliced up
Prêt à manger.
Sliced up.
Did you know McDonald's have sold them, by the way?
Hey?
You know McDonald's bought Prêt à manger.
No, I didn't know that. Didn't know.
And they've now sold them.
It was started by 2 young men, wasn't it, who wanted to bring better sandwiches to London.
Do you know where the first one was?
Where?
Hampstead.
Excuse me. Yeah, that figures because it's trendy.
Yeah, it opened up just as a single shop.
Yeah.
Selling sort of, fresh sandwiches and all that kind of thing, and it's become a massive, massive business.
Up near the corner where the tube station is.
Yeah, it was there,
Yes, that's right, yeah. Now then, it says that Pré à Manger, which I've told you about,
Prêt à manger.
last year bought 5 million avocados. I mean, just think of that.
Yeah.
5 million avocados.
Where would you put them all?
Where would you put them all?
What are you thinking? Well, I don't think they bought them all at once.
Vegetarian options are so in demand that Pré will open a vegetarian-only shop in London this summer, which will be based on avocado recipes.
Yeah.
It's going to convert one of its stores in Soho to test new menu options, OK? That's amazing, all this, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, they are lovely avocados. They're very good for you. They taste nice, and, they're very, very easy to eat.
In my Indian restaurant, I have avocado prawns
Well, I'm
to start
staggered
with.
that you can get avocado prawns in an Indian restaurant.
Why?
Because I've never seen an Indian restaurant with those kind of starters.
Well,
I've seen Indian restaurants where they have, a little English section for people who don't like Indian food.
Right.
Like, you can have chips and you can have, omelettes or something like
No,
that.
no.
Most of the Indian restaurants I go to would not have avocado prawns on
And my main course is always chicken biryani.
Is it?
Yeah.
Really?
And they have, like...
Chicken tikka biryani?
No, chicken biryani with bits of silver paper on the top, which you can eat.
Silver paper?
Yeah, they don't do your fillings in. You can eat it.
Are you sure?
No, strips of silver paper on the top.
Why would you eat that?
I don't know, but it's a decorative thing.
Yeah.
But it does. I mean, I've tried it by picking it up and putting it on my
it's making
fillings.
me feel funny now. Thinking about it.
But it doesn't electrocute you.
Really?
No.
That's always a plus. You can go for dinner and not die.
Start spreading the news. I'm leaving
I have to say, no matter how many times you hear that song, it does
totally
give you a
agree.
little lift, doesn't it?
And what's your immediate image in your head when you hear that?
Well, it's just a bar in New York somewhere,
No,
really.
mine is Eamon Duran's.
Is it?
Eamon Duran's, was that on 2nd?
It was on 2nd and 53rd. Yeah.
2nd and 53rd. It had the fantastic jukebox.
Yeah.
Eamon was a great mate of ours,
Yeah.
a first-generation Irishman who established a great business there. Used to go and play golf with him and all sorts of things. And I lit a number of occasions. I stayed in that bar all night. I used to come out at 6 o'clock in the morning. Brilliant.
And go to work.
And go to work.
I know, those were the days.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen anymore because the bar's not there anymore,
No.
actually, and he's not alive anymore, funny enough.
No,
But,
he died a
we'll
long
talk
time
some more
ago.
about him because he was fascinating.
Yeah.
But right now, we're going to talk about Donald Trump. It's John Green is here.
Yeah.
He is, of course, watching the New York primary results for us. He's editor at America blog. John, a very good morning to you.
How's it going?
Very well indeed. Thanks very much for joining us.
Yes.
We're just watching on our internal monitors here Donald Trump making his speech. We can't hear what he's saying, but he looks as if he's got his hair under control for once.
Yeah, I would imagine he would be taking pretty good care of his hair tonight.
Yeah, I mean, not really a surprise, I suppose, if you consider that what he's just won is not just New York City, but New York State. What does this mean for his campaign? How much closer is he to getting the number of votes he needs to get the nomination?
Well, so the interesting thing is, we know he won New York State. It's actually kind of important how much he wins New York by.
Right.
If he wins by each congressional district by more than 50%, he can actually sweep almost all of the delegates. And if he gets more than 85 or so out of the 90-some delegates that are up for grabs tonight, he's in a really strong position to sort of shut Ted Cruz out at the convention. It's all about getting a certain number of delegates so that he has a majority of the delegates going into the convention, not necessarily a raw vote total, which so we're going to be looking more later into the night to see just how much he won New York by.
John, is there any sign that a major gaffe like confusing 9/11 with 7/11 harmed Mr. Trump in any way, or is he still the Teflon politician?
You know, he keeps saying ridiculous stuff, and we keep thinking like, all right, this is it, right? This is the one. When he insulted a war hero, when he made fun of a disabled reporter, he attacked a moderator of one of the debates for menstruating, like all of these things that we keep thinking, all right, this has got to be the one that brings him down, and nothing affects him.
Yeah.
His supporters really, really, really like him. The people who aren't already in his camp, though, the encouraging thing is the people who aren't already in his camp aren't going towards him anymore. He's no longer picking up support.
Well,
Sure.
that is where he's got the problem, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
I mean, for a lot of people following the way that this whole process works from this side of the Atlantic, it's kind of confusing because people say, well, how can Donald Trump win in New York? You know, sure, it's a big Democratic state, but in the end, that's not necessarily what's going on, is it? I mean, he's getting closer and closer to the Republican nomination, but he's also looking probably better now than the reality of how well he will do in November is going to show.
Yeah, the polling data that's out now would suggest that in order for him to actually win in November, he would need 125% turnout among white people.
Right.
So obviously that's not possible. So it's encouraging, I guess. I mean, it's obviously not great when a major political party nominates someone like Donald Trump, but the Democrats are not exactly worried that he would actually beat Hillary Clinton in November, barring something major, right? If the economy goes into a huge recession, if there's a major terrorist attack, something like that. But in a normal run-of-the-mill general election, he shouldn't be able to win at all.
Yeah, does he know that, do we think, John? And therefore, can you say that at the end of the day, this might have been just one vast publicity stunt for Donald Trump, because whatever happens to him now, he's going to be remembered for a very long time. Even if he was popular before or well-known before, he's like the most famous man in the world at the moment.
Yeah, so I sort of go back and forth on this, right? Part of me thinks that he never expected to be doing this well in the first place, and that he thought he would have fun, he would like play around with running, he would get some media attention, and he wouldn't.
I think that's how it started, John. I think you're right. I think that's exactly how he felt at the beginning. You know.
Yeah, but now that he's doing so well, I think he might at this point legitimately believe that he can beat Hillary Clinton, and that's hilarious to me. But I mean, this is a guy. Yeah, he's got a huge ego. He's been doing well. He's got a very insular circle of people who are feeding him a very select set of information, and he might legitimately think that he can win.
And he's also a character. I mean, whether you like him or not, and I mean, obviously it's maybe not particularly fashionable to like him. You know, he has some charisma. He has some ability to wow an audience. Where you look at all the other people in that race, including Hillary Clinton, and including Bernie Sanders, and including Ted Cruz, and anybody else that I've seen, they don't have any of that.
No, they really don't have. So this is interesting. They've done some research on Ted Cruz. I want to focus on him specifically because he's particularly unlikable just as a person. And it turns out when you sit voters down in front of a TV screen and just play them footage of Ted Cruz talking, the longer people watch Ted Cruz, the less they like him, and it doesn't matter what he says.
Right.
And
it's a bit like listening to my co-host here, Mr. Mike Parry. The longer you listen to him, the less you like him.
Very harsh.
Right. But yes, and so as a Democrat, I think there are people in Democratic circles who would actually be okay with Ted Cruz being the nominee because of that. Whereas Donald Trump is charismatic. He is, especially when he's talking policy, he's very vague, right? So people who can sort of put their own best selves into him. A lot of people think all the racist and sexist stuff he says is an act anyway. So it is a little worrisome that he puts on a good show and he turns politics into a reality show. And I mean, there are a fair number of people who think that that's how politics actually works, and it's convincing for them.
It sure is. Can you explain to our millions of listeners, John, the difference between New York City, Manhattan, and its 4 other boroughs, and the rest of New York State, and how Donald Trump must have taken the voters outside of the city because of the liberal nature of...
Well, he doesn't know about the size of the margin, I suppose.
Well, I mean, perhaps you could explain that, John.
Yeah, so, for starters, early returns coming in suggest that, Donald Trump is doing not quite as well in some of the New York City boroughs, but he won, I think, Staten Island, which is just outside of the city, by a massive margin.
Sure. Well, that's very blue-collar, isn't it?
Yeah, a lot of police officers, firefighters, things like that, folks like that in that area. And then, heavily upstate New York. The thing about, a lot of these states, Pennsylvania is sort of the same way, where they have major metropolitan areas with, a lot of big cities, lots of people, heavily diverse. And then you get outside of those cities, and you're really in the country. You're in rural areas that are culturally not that different than areas in the more southern or midwestern parts of the country. So for perspective, I went. If you go sort of farther upstate New York, you'll see people with Confederate flags on their bumpers.
Sure.
With bumper sticker with the Confederate flag, which you would normally only expect to see in the South. But these are not. Upstate New York is similar to Pennsylvania or Ohio in those respects.
Yeah, sort of Albany and around there.
Albany.
Yeah.
Exactly. We had a conversation.
Or 10 miles outside of Albany.
Yeah, I mean, with your theories about Trump and what he wanted when he started and what he wants now and all of that, we were talking to a former Republican congressman last week who basically is of the belief that when it comes to November, Trump and Clinton may not actually either one of them be in the race for various reasons. Hillary Clinton may have been kind of forced to drop out as a result of some of the investigations that are currently going on, and Trump may just finally have made one gaffe too many. What do you make of that theory?
I think Trump's saying. I mean, if Trump's the nominee, he's going to stand no matter what. I don't think there's a single gaffe that will get him to feel any sense of shame in order to drop out.
But isn't it the case that at the moment the gaffes encourage his vote because those who like him in the Republican Party are going to make it possible for him to just do anything and say anything, whereas once he's out there for the kind of general populace, if you like, that they might be a bit more sensitive.
Oh, he might tank in the polls, but I don't think he's going to drop out of the race. And as for Clinton, it's unclear as to whether or not the FBI is going to indict her over she had kept a private email server while she was Secretary of State and things related to that. The sort of conventional wisdom is sort of, even if it wasn't exactly above board, she's probably not going to get indicted. This is something that previous secretaries of state had also done, I think is a major factor in that.
Right.
I'm skeptical. It's certainly, I guess, possible, but I don't think it's actually going to happen.
Okay. And do we know what she's done tonight against Bernie or not yet?
So the exit polls, which are normally not very good, had her with a very narrow lead, and the early returns have her with a much larger lead.
Right.
One of the big things that was kicking around sort of within the Democratic commentary today was the fact that New York has a closed primary, which means that you have to have registered as a Democrat, as like an official member of the party, 6 months in advance,
right,
in order to be able to actually vote today in New York's Democratic primary. And that's not New York's not the only state that does this, but it is the earliest deadline that you would have had to do this. And so a lot of people who wanted to vote for Bernie Sanders very recently found out that they would not be able to because they were not registered with a party.
Right.
So it
sounds like a case of gerrymandering to me.
It was sort of slightly different. So gerrymandering is where they draw the district line.
Right.
A certain way.
Yeah, we've kind of adopted it as a catch-all term for any kind of jiggery-pokery that goes on.
Oh, gotcha.
So I think that sounds about right. John, listen, thank you very much indeed. John Green there, who is, of course, the editor of America blog, telling us what went on at the New York primaries and what's likely to happen in the future. But we're going to be talking about this for many weeks and months to come, Mr. Parry, I imagine.
Indeed.
It's fascinating stuff.